Okay, good evening. It is now 6 o'clock, new start time for the Board of Selectmen, and I'll open the Wellfleet Board of Selectmen's meeting of Tuesday, November 12th, 2019. We'll begin with announcements, open session, and public comments, and please note that the public comments must be brief, and the board will not deliberate or vote on any matter raised solely during announcements and public comments. Anything from the board? Kathleen?
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to give a shout out and a thank you to the civic-minded group known as the Wellfleet Arbor Committee. 4 new trees were planted in Wellfleet at no expense to the town. Thank you guys for your efforts and hopefully creating some shade for the next generation. That was done today. Take a look at the trees that are now in the center of town.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Courtney?
Yep. Hillary had asked me to read this aloud. It's a call for instructors for Winter Wednesdays, which is taking place from February 5th to March 25th at the Provincetown schools. Winter Wednesdays is looking for instructors to share their hobbies, skills, or passions with the community. The application deadline is November 18th, and there's more information on the town website.
Good idea. Anyone else from the board? From the audience? Chief?
Evening,
Yes.
Mike Hurley, the Wellfleet Police Department. Just a few messages tonight. One, we're hoping to participate Friday with Cape Police Departments to travel to Fall River to pick up plastic buckets that will contain winter gloves, hats, and coats for veterans. And we're hoping to bring those back to Wellfleet to distribute after Friday. So stay tuned on Facebook for that. Also, Toys for Tots, you'll start seeing boxes around town that we'll distribute along with the fire department. And probably beginning of December, we'll start distributing the toys out to local children within the Lower Cape. And the third thing, we applied for and anticipating getting a $10,000 traffic grant that'll help us through next September for different holidays, July 4th, Memorial Day, to put out extra patrols for speed, OUI detection, so forth. That's kind of in conjunction with a $30,000 grant we received. We were on our 4th year that Representative Peake and Senator Sear put into the state budget that we share with 4 other departments. So this is additional money that's on top of that.
Great, and it comes from the state?
Yep, it's $10,000 we can spend on additional enforcement.
Good, that will help. And if people here have hats and gloves and mittens and coats they want to drop off, can they bring them up to the police station?
Sure, that'd be great. Once we get the other stuff that comes in, if we do distribute more than what they give us, then we can redistribute that also.
Yeah.
We'll put
okay.
more details up on Facebook.
Okay,
Madam
great.
Chair, I have a question through
Yes.
you. So $30,000 for 4 towns, which 4 towns? And we got 1/4 of that, is that right?
No,
Or each?
there's 2 grants out there. One is it's actually in the state budget through the State House, and that is for Eastham, Wellfleet, Truro, and Provincetown for $30,000. So throughout the past few years, you may have seen towns intermingling through Wellfleet, assisting us with enforcement. This is an additional grant that I applied for last month for an additional $10,000 just for Wellfleet.
No, I got that. But in other words, the 4 towns divide 30,000.
Yes, yeah, that
Thank you.
30,000.
That's what I didn't understand. Thank you.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you. Anyone else from the audience? No one from it. Okay, so moving along, we will now have a presentation by the Community Development Partnership, their strategic plan presentation, and Mr. Jay Coburn will come up and do the presentation.
Madam Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity to address you and your colleagues. And before I begin, I want to introduce my technical advisor advancing the slides, but more importantly, our new Chief Financial and Operations Officer at the CDP and a Wellfleet resident, Rob Doan, who joined us last month. And we're really thrilled to have not only a Wellfletian, but a young professional taking over a really important role within our organization. So, Rob, really glad to have you on board.
Thank you.
So the Community Development Partnership is the Lower Cape's nonprofit community development corporation. And what I wanted to do tonight is talk to you a little bit with an update of some of our programs and services, in case you and other members of the public are perhaps not familiar with the whole host of services that we offered. But then most importantly, that we've been engaged in a strategic planning process over the last 6 months as part of a 5-year strategic plan that's under development. And I wanted to share with you some of the kind of new priorities and new program areas that we are looking at because it is so important that the work that we do really reflect the needs of our Lower Cape communities, and I think we'd really be well informed from your input and wisdom. So Rob, if you wouldn't mind just advancing the slide. So we were founded in 1992 as the Lower Cape Cod Community Development Corporation with a mission to nurture a vibrant Lower Cape region by supporting strong local businesses and providing safe, stable, and affordable housing. And so let me talk a little bit about some of the work that we do to strengthen local businesses. So we offer a series of workshops, usually each winter in the off-season, given the seasonality of many of our businesses. We can help business owners with financial record keeping and how to use QuickBooks. We offer a number of workshops on marketing, particularly using social media and the internet to increase a business's visibility. A big challenge given the severe labor shortage that we experience on the Lower Cape is attracting, retaining, and hiring staff, and so we do a lot of work in human resource management. We also provide one-on-one business consulting at a number of different locations. So, for example, at the Harwich Cultural Center, at the Provincetown Commons up in Provincetown, and we just developed an agreement late last week after this presentation was sent to the town to hold office hours at Preservation Hall in Wellfleet. So to really make it much easier for business owners to access the one-on-one consulting services that we offer. And then we're probably best known for the microfinancing that we do, that over a 19-year period, we've helped 200 small businesses with over $3.25 million worth of loans. Those are loans that are up to $40,000. They are often for a business that is new and starting out, and so not able to be served by one of our local community banks. But we are able to take risks that some of the banks are not able to do with somebody who's got a lower credit score or just doesn't have a track record in business. And then one of the things that we do for all of our loan clients is to help those businesses succeed by having them meet with us on a quarterly to a monthly basis. Michael, I hope you don't mind if I disclose that your business many years ago was a loan client and helping you and Katie grow your great oyster farm. Mac Seafood is another example of a small business when Mac started out on the pier and needed a loan to buy new equipment in the leased space he was starting out with. We were able to help him out as his first outside lender. We have a great partnership with the Cape Cod called the Cape Cod Fisheries Trust, where we collaborate with the Cape Cod Commercial Fishermen's Alliance to operate a scallop quota bank, where we make scallop quota available at below market rates to help local fishermen. And the other great collaboration that we have in the fisheries space is our collaboration with SPAT to have a Wellfleet specific loan fund just for shellfishing businesses. And that loan fund was capitalized by SPAT with proceeds from Oysterfest about 4 years ago. And so we're able to do specific loans for shell fishermen to be able to buy new, more state-of-the-art gear, purchase better quality seed, as well as deal with some of the capital requirements that have come along with the new food safety requirements that shell fishermen are required to undertake. In the area of stable and affordable housing, we have a number of different things that we do. So we have 70 units of affordable, deed-restricted affordable rental housing for residents at 80% of area median income and below. So just to give you a sense of what that means, that's an income of about $72,000 for a family of four, and we have a variety of different units depending on the funding sources. Here in Wellfleet, Fred Bell Way, which is a collaboration with the Wellfleet Housing Authority that we built about 17 years ago, provides housing for 12 residents here in Wellfleet. And then we have a new kind of innovative community housing project that the town of Provincetown, through their year-round market rate rental trust, has created to be able to help provide rental housing for families that don't qualify for traditional affordable housing, yet given the pressures on our rental housing market from Airbnb and short-term property rentals, which basically makes it much more profitable for homeowners to rent their home as vacation rentals or their investment property as vacation rentals by the week than to do a market rate year-round rental. So that's this project in Provincetown is designed to try to help those families, and particularly in a community that just has very little year-round rental housing. We are also working to expand our property management department, and are currently negotiating a partnership with Community Housing Resource to manage their 88 units in Wellfleet, Truro, in Provincetown. And so that would bring us into have a portfolio of close to 200 rental units on the Lower Cape. We run a housing rehabilitation loan program. For many years, we were able to do that in Wellfleet, but we have not been able to run that program the last 2 years. It's funded with community development block grants in a very competitive grant award environment. And so the last 2 years, Wellfleet's statistics, even though we know there is great need in Wellfleet, but Wellfleet's not been eligible. But over the years, we have helped a number of low to moderate income homeowners in Wellfleet and throughout the Lower Cape through a program that provides up to $40,000 for the household to make much needed repairs to the homeowner's home, such as putting on a new roof, replacing windows and siding, dealing with various code and safety violations through a no interest, no payment forgivable loan. And as long as the homeowner stays in that home, that loan gets turned into a grant. And then the other great impact of this program, where we've helped 400 homeowners since 1994, is that we've spent about $10.5 million with local contractors actually doing that work on local homeowners, and as we try to preserve the local housing stock. Another program in housing that the Select Board is very familiar with is our Community Housing Partnership. It was great to have the 4 members who were here a year ago attend our Housing Institute. So that is a 6-session training program that we hold each fall for elected and appointed officials as well as town staff, as we try to build the capacity of our communities to create more housing. And certainly Wellfleet is making tremendous strides with the Lawrence Road project currently under development, as well as a lot of innovative programs that are supported by the Housing Authority and the Housing Partnership. We also provide quarterly peer group meetings for folks working on housing, as well as advanced trainings. We've also have been training local residents to be advocates, and are providing housing consulting services for the town. And then finally, the other aspect of this project is the public media campaign. And this year had featured one of your firefighters and paramedics, an attempt to try to help voters and residents of the Lower Cape really understand that the people who in our community who need affordable housing are really vital members of our community. And it's really important that we make sure that we have housing that's affordable for the people who work year-round and provide such essential services in our community. The results of this effort that's been going on for the last 3 years, I think, are pretty impressive. We've seen the 8 Lower Cape towns approve over $15 million in local funding for housing initiatives at 2017 and 2018 town meetings. Last year, we had 43 housing-related articles that were approved amongst the 8 different towns. And those articles did things such as either create or reform accessory dwelling unit bylaws to make them easier for homeowners to use to create rental apartments or rental dwellings on existing properties. The town of Orleans adopted a very innovative strategy of doing a Proposition 2.5 override that allows them each year to put 1% of their town budget into their affordable housing trust. That funding mechanism is now ensuring that the town of Orleans has the resources to partner with developers on projects, to acquire land that might come on the market and needs to be purchased quite quickly. And several other towns have established housing trusts. Brewster, Chatham, and Harwich have all established them, and all those towns now are looking at adopting similar measures to provide a funding stream, particularly now that we have the availability of the short-term rental tax coming into our municipalities, as well as revenue from recreational marijuana establishments that are being licensed by the town. So dedicating some of those resources to make sure that the towns are positioned to be able to leverage, multi-million-dollar investments in affordable housing. And so I'm really proud to report that we now have, in addition to Wellfleet working on the Lawrence Road property, that we have every single Lower Cape town is working on at least one significant parcel for affordable housing development. We also offer training and education programs for first-time homebuyers and reach about 50 families each year for our first-time homebuyer program. And then one of our affordable housing units is actually an 8-bed sober living residence in Orleans that we operate in Gosnell to provide a safe place for residents who are in recovery from substance abuse addiction to be able to provide the support and counseling services that they need and be reintegrated into the community. So I want to talk just a little bit about the organization and how we're funded. We have a $3.7 million budget, a staff of 17, and we have a pretty broad and diverse sources of revenue. About $1.8 million of our funding comes from federal, state, and town government grants, both related to housing and small business development. Each year, we receive about $170,000 to $180,000 through the Cape and Islands License Plate Fund. So for all of you who have Cape and Islands license plates, thanks for helping us out each year. About $1 million of our budget comes from what we call earned revenue. So the rents on our affordable rental properties, interest on our loans, workshops and fees, the leases on our scallop quota, all ways of sustaining our programs through earned revenue. And then we couldn't function without the now over $600,000 a year that we receive from generous individuals, businesses, and private foundations in the region. So let me now focus a bit on our strategic plan. We have been working with Wellfleet part-time resident Carl Sussman, who's a pretty talented consultant for nonprofits in the community development area. We did a series of 40 key informant interviews, as well as held a day-long board and staff retreat. And from that retreat have identified a number of strategic programs that I wanted to share with you, and would welcome your questions and comments on them. So the first is for us to look at some new work around developing and implementing new strategies for creating year-round jobs, and particularly year-round jobs that have a livable wage. And so while we currently are staffed in Eastham, we're looking for ways to expand our presence in Provincetown, Harwich, and I should now add Wellfleet to that, given our partnership with Preservation Hall, but where we can have more staff on the ground in closer proximity to small business owners to provide the training and technical assistance that they need. A second area that we've been exploring is that while the Cape Cod Commission does some important work every 5 years of developing a comprehensive economic development strategy for Barnstable County, I think it's fair to say that both the sub-regional economies of the Outer Cape and the Lower Cape have a lot of significant differences from what's going on in the Mid and Upper Cape. And that there may be some merit for us working with our sub-regions of the 4 Outer Cape towns and the 4 Lower Cape towns on a sub-regional economic development plan. A third area is that we often hear from the businesses that we work with that trying to start up and run a business in town can often have some challenges and barriers. I think that our towns play really important roles in regulations to protect the environment and to protect public health, and also to ensure that there's a balance between business interests and residents' interests. But I think often for small business owners, and particularly for business owners starting out, that trying to navigate that myriad of regulations and different regulatory boards can become a real barrier for trying to start and grow a business. And so I think we're interested in taking some of the lessons that we've learned through the work that we've been doing to support towns and housing production and transferring that, and how can we help towns think through what are some strategies to make the permitting and licensing process easier to navigate and more collaborative to protect those important functions, but also try to get to yes rather than just instinctively putting up barriers to business development. Fourth area that we are looking at is we are observing a kind of growing cohort of particularly younger people with successful careers who either have grown up here on the Lower Cape or perhaps were summer residents moving here because of our incredible quality of life, the quality of our public schools, the ability to have a little bit less stressful lifestyle here, but are able, because of the internet, to be able to bring their jobs with them. And that if you can, bring a six-figure consulting job, or just a job that you're able to do, that maybe you need to go to New York or Boston or someplace a few times a year, but can basically do your job from Wellfleet or Truro or Provincetown. That's a great economic development tool. That becomes a really low impact way of bringing resources and good jobs into the community without using up natural resources and having families be able to be here and positioned. And maybe they're starting a small consulting firm that's going to need 1 or 2 or 3 employees that can be paid a good wage that can afford the housing in our community. And so what are programs and incentives that we can provide to encourage people to move to our community and bring their jobs with them? There's some interesting models. For example, the state of Vermont offers a $10,000 grant that if you move to the state of Vermont with your job and stay there for 2 years, they'll reimburse you for up to $10,000 for the expenses of moving to the state. State of Maine has an interesting initiative where for out-of-state residents who attend Maine colleges and universities and then decide to stay in Maine, that the state offers a state tax credit to help with student loan forgiveness. And perhaps that's a strategy that we might look at for not only the Outer and Lower Cape, but also other rural parts of the Commonwealth to encourage young people to not just settle in the Boston 495 corridor, but to look at other parts of the states as a place to settle down and bring their talent and expertise. In the area of housing, what we're looking at is to create the capacity within the CDP to develop affordable and community housing, either independently or in partnership with Off-Cape, both for-profit and non-for-profit developers. We have not developed an affordable housing development since we did Thankful Chase's Pathways in Harwich in 2010. And I think now that we have created quite an impressive pipeline in the 8 Lower Cape towns, that it's important for us to think about returning to the development space and ensuring that it's not just large for-profit developers or developers that are primarily using the low-income housing tax credit, which really only creates affordable housing for families that at 60% of area median income and below, and that by having a not-for-profit, community-driven developer here, particularly given that Ted Malone at Community Housing Resource in Provincetown is going to be retiring in the next few years, that I think there is an important role for us to play as a nonprofit developer. I think we are also exploring are there programs and services that we could offer to support homeowners who want to create accessory dwelling units now that we have created the pathway in all of our communities? There still is a real challenge for a homeowner who's not typically a real estate developer, particularly an elderly homeowner in our communities who wants to build out that space above their garage or perhaps take a walkout basement and turn that into an accessory dwelling. But could really use a resource center where they can help them navigate the permitting process, look at accessing funding and how to finance the construction, and then also deal with the permitting and the construction and hiring a contractor and design services. And so we're looking around for some funding to perhaps launch a pilot program where we'd help homeowners create ADUs. And then we, as I mentioned earlier, we're also expanding our property management. And one of the reasons why I think that's really important to us is that, I think we're really excited that the town of Eastham is building 65 units of affordable housing through a developer called Penrose, which is based in Philadelphia. And they are going to have a full-time property manager on site at those 65 units and a maintenance person as well. But in property management, there are actually some other jobs that support the operation of a large project, and all those jobs are going to be in Philadelphia, not here. And that by having a locally controlled, locally owned property management department, that we are not only I think providing some degree of comfort to our communities as we build affordable housing, because you will know who's in charge of the agency that is managing a property. But also we're going to be creating a number of really good year-round, well-paying jobs that deal not only with the maintenance, but the accountability and the reporting and the management of those assets, and those jobs will be here on the Lower Cape and not in some corporate headquarters far away. So with that, I would welcome your questions and comments and your thoughts on our strategic priorities.
Well, I would just say you've done a great job. I mean, the CDP has really come a long way, and you've gotten us all together with your workshops, and I think the word is spreading with the small business help. And I remember when I was on the Housing Authority, Housing Partnership, whatever, one of the problems was finding a manager. Like, yes, we can get this out there, but then there's nobody really in town who would have that. So you've covered a lot of areas and doing well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else, comments, questions?
Yeah, quickly, stating the obvious, one of the things I've loved about your program is you don't just address one thing, because every part of a budget affects every other part of someone's budget.
Yeah.
And like, for example, in Wellfleet, you have to be a domicile resident in order to have a commercial permit or an aquaculture license. And, you know, you have so many things available to help people that they can pick and choose which to, you know, apply to their budget.
Right.
But it affects everything else in their lives.
I think that, you know, that certainly as my job being to be out in the community, promoting the agency, securing the resources that we need, it's not easy like running a food pantry where you're feeding the hungry, or doing something that's really easy to explain. We do offer, as I just outlined, a whole host of different programs. But if we want to preserve a vibrant year-round community, there isn't just one solution. There is a whole host of solutions that different people need at different times. And my favorite stories of the people we help are, for example, a young couple in Truro who participated in the Winter Farmers Market that we helped start several years ago, and through that learned about the CDP and attended a first-time homebuyer class, and were able to buy a deed-restricted affordable housing unit. But that unit needed a lot of work, and they had just basically spent every dime that they had on the down payment. And so they were able to use our housing rehabilitation loan program to make the repairs. And so that one family, I think, is just one example of families needing a lot of different solutions to be able to live, work, and thrive here.
It's true. Any questions or comments from the audience? Oh, sorry, keep going.
Well, it was a great presentation, and among other things, I'm happy to hear about possibly getting funding to do more work with the ADU, because I think market mechanisms for housing would be great. And then, as you had pointed out, it can create a job and maybe some microloans for those individuals who have space in their house, like an elderly person, but and it's $900 or $1,000 in rent is going to make a big difference in
Absolutely,
their budget.
yeah.
So there's, like, as somebody pointed out, a lot of different synergies. And then second of all, the business coaching that you're expanding.
Which you know a bit about,
Yeah.
Ms. Carlson. I neglected to thank you for being one of our SCORE volunteers. who
Oh,
helps with
for
that-
sure.
with that.
Well, I love business coaching. But, I mean, one thing I've seen as a business coach, that we really do have an extraordinarily entrepreneurial population out here. You kind of have to make your own job, from a plumber to a contractor to a shell fisherman. There's a lot of know-how in our community, and it's always gratifying when we can help people make more money by teaching
Absolutely.
business skills, how do I price my product, and so forth. So I think those two things jumped out at me as really helpful, bootstrapping
Great.
type of initiatives.
Thank you. Kathleen?
Yeah, great presentation, Jay. I was expecting this. Carl gave me a heads up. I've been working with him, and he's just been great.
Right.
I want to jump on to the ADU thing. I think that after we see, hopefully, 95 Lawrence Road come into fruition, Wellfleet really won't have anything left to build on, and we'll be looking at how we can create more ADU. That's the only place we're going to be able to go. The only other thing I think missing from this presentation and the strategic plan is I would like the community partnership development corporations to start putting a some type of a climate component. I think we all need to be thinking about the climate changes and the climate component going forward with regard to housing, jobs, the economy, so on and so forth. I think we'd be in denial if we didn't do
Sure.
so.
So in the interest of time, I kind of left out some of the things that we've done around energy efficiency to respond to the climate crisis. So if I could just briefly share with you, we actually, as an agency, have about 450 solar panels on 9 of our affordable housing developments. And we used the revenue generate and the electrical savings generated by that to lower some of the costs for our residents. and then also the income that's coming in from the SREC revenue from the power company, we use to finance energy efficiency upgrades. And so, for example, at Fred Bell Way, about 7 years ago, we replaced all of the furnaces there with very energy efficient propane furnaces, so that we are reducing our carbon footprint, but also simultaneously trying to make those units less expensive for residents.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Mike?
So, I agree with the ADU stuff. I'm encouraged to hear that you're looking into increasing that. I know there's been a couple towns that have eliminated the, like I think in Chatham, it's just accessory dwelling units. There's not an income contingency on there. And part of the thing that I see with my generation, as far as moving back here or trying to start a business here or create something, is they don't fit into an affordable housing bracket.
Right.
A lot of families that are young are there's just no inventory for actual rental housing units for people who don't qualify for those. And I think it's a huge gap that we've sort of overlooked. And it's definitely a huge hindrance to the people who are trying to save and maybe buy a house. In order to do that, you need to make some money, and you work really hard. And I just came personally out of a situation where I was living in like a 500 square foot, like I'll call it a shack because that's what it was. And I don't mind living there, but there wasn't another option. Like we had a kid and we had a year of that, and we pieced it together and figured it out. But the challenge that exists, even just to find a place to move into, or if you get evicted due to whatever circumstances, there's really nothing for people who don't qualify for affordable housing. And so I'd really hope to see in the future the CDP focus on just expanding housing stock inventory in any way possible.
So if it could just kind of a few comments about that, because Michael, I think you've really hit one of the greatest challenges that we have. The primary, so first of all, it is impossible to build housing for working people in our community without some level of subsidy from and pretty much coming from government. That the cost of our land and the cost of our construction just makes it impossible for the market without any kind of subsidy to create that kind of housing. Because if the market could, it would have. Then the second layer of that challenge is that the major source of equity to build affordable housing is, as I mentioned earlier, through the low-income housing tax credit. And so, for example, the project in Eastham, the 65 units there, it's about a $23 million project. $10 million of that is coming through the low-income housing tax credit. But that will only fund units for 60% of area median income below. And that translates into basically one income earner working full-time at about $20 an hour. But the minute you put a second income earner in that household, they no longer qualify. And in fact, most likely don't qualify for an 80%. So what we're left there then to do is really the towns are needing to step in. And what I see as the primary strategies there are ADUs that don't have an affordability requirement, but they do have a requirement of being occupied year-round. And so we actually, when I was on the select board in Truro, I led an effort to revise our ADU. We removed the affordability because, let's face it, we can't, Wellfleet I think has been unique in being successful with your deed restriction, but every other Lower Cape town, homeowners didn't want to put a deed restriction on their property. But the beauty, I think, of removing the deed restriction, yet requiring year-round occupancy, so you keep that property out of the seasonal rental space, which is where its highest value is. But you are then going to create units that are $900, $1,000, up to $1,400, $1,500 a month. That folks who don't qualify for affordable housing can still afford that rent and not be cost burdened, not spend more than 30% of their income on their housing. So ADUs, I think, can be a real important part of the problem. But then I think ultimately that while there is increasingly some limited state funding to help support those above 80% of area median income. So 15 of the units that are under construction in Eastham are funded through a mass housing funding initiative, funding up to 90% of AMI. Those resources are really limited, and it's really going to be the towns using resources either through the short-term rental tax, through the marijuana tax, or even our property tax, particularly in towns that have adopted the residential property tax exemption, so that our second homeowners are helping to share a greater portion of that burden. That's really the way we're going to be able to address that housing shortage, particularly in the medium term.
Yes, go ahead.
Just a follow-up, I guess not on the same subject, but would you recommend, I mean, I kind of think that this short-term rental tax, the short-term rentals are our largest contributor to the lack of housing. I mean, clearly. It seems to me that tax should be, at least in large percentage, directed to our housing problem.
I would agree with that. I think that I've been talking about this for a long time as we've looked at finally getting the short-term rental tax into law. That it's really, you could view it as mitigation. And let me kind of give you an interesting statistic that came out of a study that UMass Dartmouth did for the town of Provincetown, really looking at their housing market. And so typically if you buy a 2-bedroom condo in Provincetown, and your primary home is in Boston or New York, and you spend in Provincetown up to $1,000 a square foot, so $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 buying that unit. If you put that up and rent that year round at a market rate rental of say $1,400-$1,500 a month, that's one way as an investment property you could carry it. But if you actually rent it for 120 to 180 days on Airbnb, you're going to make $20,000 more than you would on that market rate. And the value of your property is actually based on that higher income. And so there's unless we're intervening in some way or using the Airbnb tax as mitigation, that's really the only way we're going to be able to create units in that space, and which is why the town of Provincetown created a year-round market rate rental trust. They were able to purchase the bankrupt Harbor Hill development. I mean, certainly that is a big project. It has been really challenging, but I really commend the town for having the vision that was the only, without some subsidy, that was the only way that they were going to be able to create rental housing for police officers and school teachers and town employees and managers in businesses and healthcare workers at Outer Cape, so that folks could live in the community that they work in and not have to be commuting
Workforce
from the
housing.
Mid-Cape. Exactly. Yeah.
Good. We have a housing trust, but it's not, it's with the Housing Authority, right? Is it the town? What? We have a trust.
We have Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It's not funded by a funding source like Orleans has done, though.
Yeah,
Usually we get money from the community preservation funds.
yep. Okay, any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Comments? Great.
Well, we are happy to be working in partnership with you, and I really appreciate your feedback and your time tonight. Thank you.
Yes,
James.
thanks. Works both ways.
Yeah.
Okay. And, excuse me, now we'll have the Marine Advisory Board. Hello.
Joe Aberdale, Chair of the committee, Walter Barron, Vice Chair. Thank you for having us. We work, first of all, with the harbor master and his staff, reviewing the entire operation of the marina, addressing problems, complaints, concerns. We conduct hearings on those and provide whatever resources we can to the harbor master to remedy issues that may come up or to explore new ideas, concepts that we can incorporate. One of those has been a long-term commitment and involvement in the town's dredging efforts. We were actively involved in the original dredging committee, and now that there is a formal committee, we monitor what is going on, provide support, and on several occasions have conducted an extensive lobbying and letter writing campaign to secure funds. The Selectboard, from time to time, will request that we do a study and make recommendations. There was one request made on the chargers for electrical automobiles, and we passed on our recommendation to you, and most recently, the issue of overwintering of the shellfish gear in the harbor. We work from time to time with the shellfish warden on issues that are common to us, and recently, at her request, have developed a proposal for a fee schedule for the overwintering of boats. Soon, we will be working with the Natural Resources Advisory Board to update the harbor management plan. We also have begun discussions on a long-range master plan for the marina. The issue of parking on the marina has become more and more prominent, and we anticipate that that issue is going to require a lot of attention on all of our parts when dredging is achieved, that the demand for parking will increase a great deal. And we know that in recent years, the marina has served as a wonderful resource in the town, not only for boating, but for non-boaters as well. We were pleased that Dan honored our request to involve Mike Travato as we look to the future. Mike has 8 years' experience in the planning department in Hyannis and extensive experience in marina planning and grant writing. So we are looking forward to having him work with us on the committee. Committee members have also served on other related committees. Walter served on the Mayo Creek Committee and also has, for some years now, put on the wonderful Wellfleet rowing event. I serve on the Parking Task Force, and we've have a member serving on the Herring River Committee. So that's an overview. Walter, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think that covers it pretty well. I mean, it's whatever happens out at the marina is what we're looking at. And as you know, the name of the committee is the advisory committee. So one of our main purposes is to advise the selectmen towards decisions relating to the marina. One of the things that we've worked on with the shellfish warden is the safety issues of lost gear, stuff that gets moved by ice or storms, finding that stuff, getting it picked up or dealt with somehow. We pretty much focus on the marina, but there's a lot of stuff happening at the marina. So one of the things I think we do a little bit of is try to educate people on what is going on down there, like the parking thing, what's happening to dredging. That's one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, what's happening with the dredging? Well, now it's in the hands of the politicians in Washington. So what can you do there? But we try to educate people about what's going on there. I don't know how effective it is, but we do try. That's part of the whole thing that we do.
Well, I think
One of
I just want to say that I know you and the whole committee love the marina. I mean, the marina area is great. It's one of the most beautiful areas of Wellfleet, and yet I feel it's always underappreciated in some way. But, you know, and we always talk about fixing it up, and I hope that you will come with ideas on what it needs for improvement. Parking, you're on your own. We got, yeah.
We need to get dredged.
Yeah, but you're not on your own, as you know, but it's one of those things. But yeah, no, I think it's a great job, and we've talked about it, and any ideas you have for the future, just get that going so we can also try to get money for the future for it. And I think Mike Travato will be great, hopefully, at grants and improving things, and I'm looking forward to that.
One of the unique qualities, as we all know, is the enterprise fund, and that we're the only marina on the Cape that has that fund. And in order to maintain it and have it be sufficiently funding the marina, we have to offer a good product. That's why dredging is so critical to all of this. The other thought, Walter mentioned, providing education. There's a common perception among many people that the marina serves only pleasure boaters. And we know that's not true, that we have a thriving commercial, businesses, shellfishing down and otherwise down there, that the marina plays an important role for these people.
Just as an example, there's 5 or 6 different communities that use the pier and the marina. There's commercial shell fishermen, there's commercial draggers, there's mooring people, there's people in slips, there's the people that walk. I mean, if you ever go down to that pier,
Yeah.
chances are you've seen someone walking around that place. There's people that park their cars at work, at various businesses related to that, and then there's other people that park their cars just to go to those businesses. I mean, there's 5, 6 different
Yeah.
communities of people that are using the place. So trying to blend all that together is, it takes a little thought and effort.
Kathleen?
We approved funding to replace the gas tanks at our last spring town meeting. I'm assuming that you're working with our harbor master in that project. Can you tell me a little bit of where that's at? When are we going to see them? Where are we going to see them?
I think that is yet to be determined. Dan oversaw the RFPs going out, one of which addresses that issue. The tanks are at the end of their life.
Yeah, we know that.
The issues on the table are underground, above ground, and where. We received a response on the RFP with some specifics, and I think the next challenge is to move ahead and to make some recommendations on that.
Will we see it in 2019?
I don't
months
think we're in
ago.
a position to answer that right now. I think it's a realistic goal, but I think the process of going through the response to the RFP and looking at the options for placement and funding are going to be on the table for you to be involved in.
Great.
And the enterprise fund gets revenue only from moorings and slips, no other income, yeah,
The launch ramp.
and the launch ramp,
Right.
yeah. Anybody, Helen?
Yeah, I thought we decided we wanted the tanks above ground because of sea level
have to
rise.
be.
I think, yeah. But that isn't my question. So as you know, for this first year, the Center for Coastal Studies has offered us a way to find out what all the junk under the water is. So the first year is going to be a doozy. And has the Marina Advisory Committee talked at all about how we're going to get the stuff out once it's located?
We have not yet. I think we're waiting for the results.
Is that, and the second question, I'm sorry, I should have put both questions in the same sentence, sorry. Is there a schedule? Do you know when this is going to happen?
I'm not aware of any.
They just did the survey.
They just did it recently.
Survey?
The sonar survey.
Oh,
just
they
did
did
it.
that already. That was what I didn't know. I knew it was
They've
pending.
done that part. but
Okay.
now they gotta
And have you seen it?
Have not. And we anticipate that they're working on the raw data and are going to formulate it into a report. And if we don't see it soon, I think we should make an inquiry now that the actual sonar scanning has been done.
I'll tell you when, and this is the last thing I'm going to say, I swear to God.
For the whole meeting, or just on this point?
One agenda item at a time, Madam Chair. So here's the thing. To me, this is time sensitive because I would like to know in a kind of strange baseline way what's happening right now and then what are we going to see after the ice this year, okay? I would really like to have some basis of comparison, right? I know they've already done it, but wouldn't we all like to see it?
Isn't Nancy's department doing it, though?
Yeah, but doing it in conjunction, I mean, the Marina and the Shellfish Department are very much hand in hand about this, because guess what? It's not all shellfishing gear. There are probably Volkswagens down there.
So
you
this
know,
is,
I've been
yeah.
an active user of the harbor for 47 years and go back to the days when a trash can with concrete in it would suffice as a mooring.
Yep.
And I suspect you're right that we're going to find a variety of things out there.
And so the budget should probably thinking about this.
So I would like to announce that the Center for Coastal Studies is having a benefit on Tuesday evening at their offices and at the church next door, and it is going to be their starting, because even though they get grants to do this kind of stuff, it's all costing more money, and they did a huge beach cleanup from Eastham up to Race Point last weekend. But anyhow, there is a benefit up there, and it's for funding beach cleanups like we're doing. So, but I think I don't know who's doing the actual pulling of the stuff out. Justina?
Well, I wanted to thank you for coming in and knowing that you're the advisory committee. I know that you spoke on the overwintering when we had to make a decision. And it's good knowing that there's so much to know in this critical area of the town, and especially hearing your 40-some-odd experience. It's reassuring to know that you exist as a committee we can draw on for a professional opinion.
We're really excited about the next few years because we think the complexion down there is going to change significantly with the advent of dredging and pump a lot of life for a lot of people, you know, there. And I'd like to mention in closing one part of that. We are on the parking committee winding down and getting prepared to write the final report and do a presentation to you. And I just completed writing the draft of the report regarding the marina. But I would like to mention briefly that one item we're going to be placing on the table that we think is going to be very challenging is the fact that the marina, we all know, has served as a municipal parking lot for many constituencies over the years. And with the advent of dredging and the positives that go with it, there's also going to be the demand. And so there's going to have to be a new effort when that occurs to really examine all of that and to have you involved in sorting it out and reaching some conclusions.
No parking problems in the winter.
There's another question.
Go ahead, Mike.
I just was wondering if the committee has, or the advisory board has looked into increasing the capacity of the harbor for slips at all, if that's ever been looked into. I know that, there's commercial fishing in the harbor, and there are spots for commercial fishermen. There's no really reserved spots besides the Elf Pier for commercial fishermen. And I'm wondering if there is potential for the town to add capacity to the marina for slips for commercial fishermen, in light of all this talk about economic development and year-round work, and maybe not having so many commercial fishermen trailering their boats in and out every day. Just figured I'd raise that point and
We have heard from other commercial fishermen about that issue. That's a situation where I think, we hear about needs that are expressed by people, but ultimately the town has to decide what kind of marina they want and how large that marina will be. For example, Area 2 for dredging in the mooring basin hasn't been dredged since 1957. We have engineering studies that indicate that with a full dredging, which is critical because we're learning that if Area 2 is not dredged, Area 1 is going to be vulnerable to be right back in the same position. And with a full dredging of Area 2, there is possible capacity for an increase of about 50 additional moorings that we have not had. Now, that would generate additional income, not only for the marina, but to businesses that deal with boating. However, it would increase the demand for parking. So it's in that context that we're looking at the size of the marina, that ultimately the town wants. Now, in Area 1 in the slips, one could possibly promote an idea of additional slips over in that side, which would involve additional dredging. So, the answer to your comment, I think, is that it's viable, it's realistic, but ultimately the town needs to establish priorities on that operation and how big it is going to be.
So would the moorings, if you put in 50 additional moorings, would they expand towards Chipman's Cove, more towards the breakwater, more towards Chequasit?
More toward Indian Neck and
More
Chipman's
toward- yeah.
Cove.
And same with the slips, like you can actually put in more slips? If
Well,
if
not
we were
right now,
dredged beautifully.
Not
yeah.
the way it's
Not now, but
configured,
you would put them more towards the north? The west, yeah.
possibly.
Possibly.
And there might be other ideas. Our approach on the committee has always been, when these issues come up, everything should be on the table to
Yeah.
be examined, all options, so that people can participate in the discussion of them and look at the various options, offer ideas, and then ultimately the town decide what they want to do in terms of size and capacity.
Kathleen?
How off or down is the revenue from moorings? And boat launching. I mean, I saw it this summer. I'm sure you have an idea of the drop in revenue with regard to, people not using the moorings because there's so little time on the water.
It's not down significantly because so many people have waited so many years to obtain the permit. They're reluctant to let it go.
Either the slip or the mooring?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They'll pay the money and
So they're not, yeah.
not use it.
They
Traffic's
don't
not
want to
there,
lose
but
it.
the,
The hope of dredging is on the horizon, so
Okay.
they want to keep it.
yeah.
But do you feel that use of the marina is down because of the lack of dredging?
Well, certainly the use of boating time is down.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that affects commercial people,
Exactly, just to point out
as
that.
well as others, but there's no question. And we come back to, you look at Harwich, that just underwent a huge reconfiguration of its marina, and Rock Harbor's been doing some work. And we're unique in that as the demand increases, we don't have the parking right now.
I know of two people that have lived in Wellfleet all their lives and have moved their boats down to Provincetown.
We're aware of that. We're also aware of people whose names have come up on the waiting list who have declined
Yeah,
because of that. I mean, they're going to spend $2,500 on a slip and can only go out on certain days at certain times. It's a considerable amount of
and
money.
even when you're out there, it's a very short, you've
Well,
got.
they're watching the time all the time.
Yeah.
It's not very pleasant to be worried about if the wind dies or things change and you can't get back in.
Helen?
So something recent has come up, as you know, that or Mike Flanagan was there, and the Shellfish Department was there, and a number of other people, about if you have more than, 10 boats, you can't shellfish in that area. Now, revealing my ignorance, Area 2 in the marina, I don't know where that is. And if it gets dredged, here's my question, is there shellfish harvested from that area now? Where is it in relation to the L-shaped pier? Will somebody tell me? I'm looking at them.
across the channel to the east of the Federal Basin, which is
Yeah.
the main mooring area, is right across from the pier. It's to the east of that, into Chipman Cove. There's no real shellfishing there.
Okay, see, I just wasn't quite aware. So if it got dredged and there were boats there, it wouldn't become something that would compromise.
My understanding is the 10-boat thing is inside the pier.
It is now.
Inside the L.
Right,
Yeah, it is now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
good. Mike?
I know I was just going to add to that. The 10-boat thing doesn't matter in Chipman's Cove in the mooring area because it's closed. That whole area is closed
Right.
during the season. All those mooring boats that are moored out there are out of the water before Chipman's Cove opens.
Yes. But my unclearness was, where was it in the first place? I didn't even know where Area 2
Yeah, okay.
was.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
All right, any other?
I'd like to
go
just
ahead,
add,
sure.
regarding that comment, the last dredging in Area 2 was 1957, Area 1 in the channel was 2002. And so many things have changed since that time, the rules and the regulations. I mean, at that time, 75% of the inner harbor dredging was funded by the state. Today, they're talking about doing 50-50. However, they have made it very clear to us about the stipulation for maintenance dredging, that they are not going to hand over any money until the town can present a realistic plan to do it and to fund it. And I think that's why the Area 2 dredging is so critically important, because the engineers have made it clear to us that without Area 2, they describe it as Area 1 being a giant sucking sponge, which is going to draw, and we're back in the same position. And it's also going to require much more funding for more maintenance dredging. Whereas if both areas are done, the amount of maintenance dredging may not have to be as much as they anticipate.
Yeah, but will have to be maintained, I mean, that's the future. Who's ever in charge just really has to know that it's got to be maintained.
Because they end the meetings by reminding us that the day after all of the dredging is done, the silt is coming
It's
back.
coming right back, yeah. Start again,
afternoon.
yeah.
And the chief engineer of the Army Corps told us a while back that in the last year alone, over 8,000 cubic yards of silt came in the channel from the last time it was studied. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for all your hard work, and keep it up and keep going. And I hope you have my support, and I'm sure the support of the board and the administration. And it is important. I would love to see the harbor shining.
Well, it's a jewel.
It is. It really
It
is.
really is. Thank you.
So thank you. All right. So now we have the police chief's report update on Oysterfest.
Well, they are walking up to come before you. SPAT will be here at your first meeting in December to provide their report.
Okay, great.
Evening.
Good evening.
So back on the 5th, I submitted a memo for the board's attention. I don't know if you want me to go through parts of it, answer questions. I'm not sure how you want to.
It was just kind of for the audience. Yeah, do it quickly for the audience.
Okay, what we did was we just broke down the daily activity. It was definitely clear the tale of two festivals, Saturday versus Sunday, both crowd estimates and crowd size and issues that we were presented with. I'll just kind of read the end. Overall, this year's festival had a huge turnout, and we continue to work closely with the event organizers to provide a safe environment. We had some challenges over the weekend, as event security company did not show. And
Oh, yeah, that's right.
that's about 25 personnel that we did not have. This resulted in critical areas, bag checks, alcohol checkpoints, perimeter, town hall security, not being staffed. Again, crowd estimates, 12 to 14,000 on Saturday and 8,000 on Sunday. I think we're starting to realize as the festival continues to grow, the public safety needs have not grown with it, as far as staffing, emergency plans, security plans that are there. Alcohol will always be a concern at an event that size with the amount of alcohol that is served. This afternoon, we had our first meeting with SPAT, very open, understand the concerns, understand the needs. Myself and the fire chief, about an hour and a half, what we consider day one of many discussions to come. I think we're really peeling the event back to the basics, look at everything. We're going to be included on a new security company. We don't deal with that SPAT hires, and
Okay, yeah.
I'd like to change that there is some public safety input into that and who they are selecting and what we're expecting from them, instead of having a group arrive in town and have no idea what their expectations are.
Good idea. You're in charge. Kathleen?
So SPAT does have an emergency management plan. And are you satisfied with that plan? Does that need to be upgraded?
I'll the fire chief.
Good evening. For each day, we put together what's called an incident action plan, an IAP. That's developed between the police department and the fire department. And that's distributed to the major players at the Oyster Fest, including SPAT personnel. I was very uncomfortable with the crowd size this year. And this was a perfect storm. If you recall, the week before, the weather was really very, very overcast and cloudy. It was a beautiful weekend. The police chief and I saw what was coming real quickly on Saturday morning. And then we had the challenge of the security company not showing up at the last minute. So we've had very, very respectful but direct conversations with the SPAT executive director and a couple of the SPAT boards. And we will be looking at this right from the ground up. And we'll have several meetings. I think we're pretty much on the same page. Today's meeting was pretty productive.
Yeah.
They were very open to our concerns. But I think you're going to see an enhanced public safety presence. And as the police chief has said, if we have to ramp it back because of the weather or crowd size, we can do that. But we need to be better prepared. It's just time. It's grown to a hugely successful event. It's a Wellfleet's brand, and we want to support it, and we're very proud of it. But we need to look at some things a little differently and ramp up some things. And the chief and I are both on the same page.
Right. Was there a medical issue on Saturday where you needed an ambulance?
I don't, and I apologize, I'm just coming back from vacation. I will have a report for the board. Our volume of calls was, anecdotally, was pretty much the same. We did end up transporting a couple folks out of the festival, but we do that, every year. But I'll get the exact numbers for you in the next
But you
week.
were able to get in and out of there.
Well,
That's really the point
We-
I'm trying to make, because,
we were able to, but it was shoulder to shoulder.
yeah,
And we just can't we've got to be able to spread out the crowd better. We also need to have the ability to move the crowd in a hurry if we have to. When I say move them, basically all hands on deck and move them up Main Street towards the Cape Cod 5 and, out Briar Lane. So those are things that we're really, this has always been a concern, but this year really, I think it made it much more of a concern because of the crowd size.
I heard from many residents that went on Saturday, I didn't, that you could not put your hand out in front of you. You couldn't even find sidewalk to move, and they were very uncomfortable. I mean, we were lucky, I feel, in that, there wasn't some major event. But going forward, I would think that we would look at having SPAT increase the entry fee. I talked to Michelle briefly, and she said, maybe if we make the ticket price a little bit higher, we'll see less people. I think it's become its own, mecca, and I don't see by increasing the price that we're going to keep the crowd down. What I would like us to look at going forward is getting some of it down to Mayo Beach and the recreation field in that area, and not having it all on Main Street. When it first started, that's where it was. Main Street's a very short run for this amount of people. If some of the educational pieces or recreational pieces, even the vendors, a few food trucks could go down to a different part of town, we're going to have to spread this crowd out somehow, somewhere, so.
It might just have to be limited. I was coming down from being up north and looking at the colors and stuff, and it wasn't advertised on the radio, but the person on the radio said, and don't forget about Oyster Fest in Wellfleet this weekend. Like he just said, great weekend for it and a lot of fun. So it really has
Channel 5
grown.
did a 2-day weather like they do
Yeah.
sporting events and concerts. They did
Yeah.
a Saturday, Sunday weather.
Yeah, so,
Plug.
yeah, so I think the details need to be worked out with SPAT. I mean, we can give advice or whatever, or opinion, but it really needs to come down to SPAT too. What?
What allegedly happened? Why did that security unit not show up? What happened?
The explanation And again, they're not run through
Allegedly.
us and hired through us.
I know.
The founder of the company, it was put to us, had a medical event and had no second in command to run the staff.
Okay,
That's-
so through you to Dan, we permit this. And we have careful wording about insurance and so forth. But aside from that, if people were hurt because of this, we would all care, never mind the liability, okay? We would care. Never mind the bad publicity. It wouldn't be good for the people that got hurt. And, you know, I'm tempted to say, if they don't get a security company, or whatever that kind of business is called, that hasn't been decently set up so that there is a second in command, I don't think we should permit it. This board should say, you know, dot all those i's, and I really hope that you do that next year.
Well, to be honest with you, and myself and the fire chief, if anything, made it very clear that weekend
Yeah.
and reinforced it again today, that until a lot of these concerns are addressed, our signatures won't even reach your level,
Thank you.
to be honest with you. And I think it's a hard look at it this year. We're not looking to be the fun police. We're not looking to, but it really, Saturday afternoon was not a comfortable feeling.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
I
right.
would imagine.
So let me just clarify what Helen asked. Was anybody hurt?
No, I mean,
Yeah,
it
nobody
was,
was
I mean,
hurt, were they?
outside of your
Okay.
basic.
Yeah, but they weren't hurt. I just,
But we were one step away from an incident that
Yeah.
would not have ended well. And I hate to continue to run a festival on luck. I mean, because luck runs out. One of the other things that we did mention today, and something they will be looking at, and it's hard to do it until another festival arises, is to have a consultant and a professional come in and see how the weekend runs and really and make a recommendation to us, because this is an event that's not an everyday event that police and fire chiefs handle to this degree, and it's a multiple-day event, not like fireworks for an hour or a carnival parade for 4 hours. This is a 3-day event for a 14-man police department and an 18-man fire department. That's, I mean, 5 years ago, we canceled all police officer vacations for a 3-day period. It's
yeah.
because we have to staff it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's becoming a
It's a
challenge.
pretty intense event for,
Janet, I actually had a
Justina,
second
had-
part.
Justina had her hand
I
up.
wasn't done, actually, but
Okay.
okay. Do you mind? It's just quick. So, to tag on to what Kathleen said, a couple of years ago, SPAT came to us and asked if they could extend down past the library, and I would consider that again. In other words, you don't want to have two completely separate locations to have to be guarded, but to extend the existing, the existing plot might work. We said no to it a few years ago, but after what you've just said, I would look at
I
it.
think the fire chief will expand a bit his concern also with the expansion.
And I think too, if, you really, SPAT will have to look at this to see if we expand it, does it just mean more people are going to be coming? What is that balance? And they also talked about having parts of it down at Mayo Beach, and the vendors didn't want to be down there, there's fewer participants there. So that's something, tell SPAT, but I'm sure they're listening, and they'll come before us, and we'll tell them. Justina, what did you want to say?
Well, I think that it's growing pains, and I have long felt that there's not enough oversight financially of SPAT, and when I raise those concerns, I'm told they cover the cost of police detail. I don't think anybody at SPAT probably has a significant security background. So apparently the security firm that was hired, as Helen found out, doesn't have a backup. So I'm kind of like thinking two things. Who's watching this store, and how do we support you guys?
I'm quite convinced that the board will support the police and fire departments on this issue. There's no doubt in my mind about
Right.
that. Again, Chief Hurley and I made it very clear, there'll be no sign-offs
Right.
until all of our concerns are satisfactorily resolved. We've also, in discussions, have said that we want to review the security company, their credentials, their background,
You should be
idea.
their events. We will be on the phone to, the folks that have hired them for these type of events and get their background and make sure that we're content with that. We also need to look at, Main Street bottlenecks, basically, in front of the old Lighthouse Restaurant, Pres Hall. And we need to be able to have the ability to move people as rapidly as possible and egress onto Holbrook Ave or Briar Lane. And that's part of the plan, if we have to move apparatus in there for, a major event. So as part of that discussion today, we talked about extending the festival to the library. And I will only permit, and we're going to do a ride around, and we're going to look at this when the weather gets a little warmer again here in the next week, but we will only permit tents or vendors on one side of the road. You won't have both sides of the road like we have had it in the past, because we've got to have a clear width. And again, all these things we discussed today for about an hour and a half, and they're pretty well received.
Sure, of course. They don't want to have problems,
Janet, follow-up question.
okay.
Sorry. Yeah, and we heard from SPAT they want to have a week of SPAT. I'm wondering, instead of expanding to the library or to Mayo or whatever, why can't we limit ticket sales like a concert does? And when the festival is out of tickets, it's out of tickets. And I think that you can get through Everbright an advance ticket online. I really question letting in an all-you-can-eat buffet amount of people into our town for precisely the kind of reasons of what's happening. So that would be also one option, in my opinion, is to start scaling back a bit and limit the burden and the risk.
Well, they'll be before us in a couple weeks. Chief?
Just a quick response to Justina's concern. It was put on the table. It's actually been on the table the past few years. They're trying to come up with ways to limit, and everything they seem to be doing, money increase, is not working. My concern would be, this would be changing a culture, as like moving an aircraft carrier. If you decide to limit 7,000 tickets a day, all those people that aren't online or don't know what's going on are gonna invade town. And then I will have thousands of people at the gates not happy, and at least the first year, it would be tough.
So in your guess, would you say that there were a lot of residents and non-residents that also get in for free? Was it, or were there, that's a hard guess. Were there a lot of
It's a pretty hard gate. I mean, there were times on Saturday, everybody was being overrun. The gates were being overrun, we were being overrun. I mean, so to the best of their ability, they were trying what they could do to collect at the gate. And again, because of the security presence not being there for bag checks and additional, you get one volunteer looks to check a ticket and 3 people go whizzing by without a security personnel there. It was a lot of challenges this year.
We'll hear from them why they didn't come up with the Plan B. I mean, I can't imagine not having your security show up and then say, well, we'll just leave it to our police and fire, knowing that you need, how many people would have been in their additional security?
They tend to bring 20 to 25.
Yeah,
And
that's a big miss.
And their checkpoints are town hall, the bag checks, which, another concern brought to them. Me and my staff have Fourth Amendment obligations for searching people and bags and stuff. That's not, unless we have reason to, it's not good. So another reason to have this, so there's a lot of logistics that they do, and even as tough as this company has been, it's not the most professional. They were just another set of eyes to help out.
Yeah,
And we
another
definitely
uniform.
We definitely noticed their absence, which I think just caused.
Well, okay, well, we could go on and on about this, but I'm also I don't know, I guess you just can't say, sorry, we're gonna cancel.
No,
But-
the problem was at 10:45, the eyes shift to myself and the fire chief. What are we going to do about it? And it became at times throughout the weekend a tad bit adversarial, because, at 10:45 on a Saturday morning, because your security company is not here, I can barely staff what I'm staffing,
Yeah.
and my people can't take on their responsibilities, so it became a struggle.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, we adapt.
Yeah.
We adapt.
And there wasn't any major incidents, so that's.
No, but I hate to focus on
I,
that.
no. Well, I don't want to.
You know,
Yeah,
again, luck will run out eventually.
yeah. Justina, were you going to
Short
say
question.
something, or Mike was? Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh.
I think you were up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, this was probably the weather
Yeah.
at this
had a
point. I
huge
mean, we've
effect.
experienced like a maximum capacity, I think, we are lucky. And I actually, this is the first I've heard that the security didn't show up, but there was congestion issues, like to the point where something has to be figured out.
Oh,
And I think there were some logistical issues that caused some congestion too, when walking around. But it obviously can't stay the way it was this year. I can't imagine having weather that good in October on the
We've had-
regular,
we
but
ha-
you know,
yeah.
you can't rule it out. I don't think that we've ever had an Oyster Fest where there's 2 beautiful days like that. And usually the weather limits people, but clearly we have to be looking towards, you know, this type of weather and what it can bring, and we saw that, and it was a lot of people on Saturday. And if there's some way they can spread people from Saturday to Sunday, maybe offering something on Sunday that, you know, like a performance or something that would bring people who were, I don't know, you know, but maybe shifting some of the amount of people that were there from Saturday to Sunday, so it's not such a
What you
huge
tend to see with the
rush.
festival, at least
With
this is
any
my
other,
19th one, that Saturday is more of a out-of-town crowd.
Right.
They travel here from really around parts of
Everywhere.
the country.
Yeah.
That's
They-
true.
They tend to travel away on Sunday. They're
Right.
tired, they've done what they've done, and they've moved on, and Sunday is your local crowd. I mean,
Right.
that was the day we were getting our hugs and people were visiting,
Yeah.
and we saw people around town. So it really is 2 festivals.
Yeah,
It's
it's true.
I think we could all bat our brains on how to alleviate Saturday, and I think a time is gonna come that weather will play some role, but it's still gonna be a lot of people, for a small area. That's our challenge. I mean, we're putting a lot of people.
Okay, go ahead, Kathleen.
I just want to clarify with regard to the security company not showing up. Did that come in on short notice? Did they not know, like
10:45 on Saturday morning.
They
They
got
may
s-
have known, or that's when we were notified.
Okay, so I guess I'm not sure if you had this question with them in your meeting. What was their notice from the security company? Was it the night before? Did it come in at 10:45? I'm betting that
Yeah,
that's where it came in.
yeah, I was under the understanding it was that morning. I think, I hope that we would have been contacted Friday.
It's hard to think fast on the fly when you just, you know.
Oh,
you
yeah,
just-
for everybody.
Yeah. Good
And
job, guys.
Medical
you.
emergencies, yeah. Thank you. Anything
Thanks
else
for
you want
letting
to
us
add?
know.
Thank
And
you.
we'll be back with SPAT again. I think we really
Okay,
want to make
good.
this a collaboration that we're all working
Great.
towards the common goal here. So
Good.
we'll be back with them.
All right, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Licenses. So, as we've done in the past, unless somebody has a problem or a suggestion with the list of licensees, when we make the motion, we can just read them all off. Or if anybody has to recuse themselves from one of these, from one of the licensees.
Yeah, Janet? I don't have to recuse, I've been cleared of that, but I do have a question with Marconi Beach.
Oh, yeah, okay, go for it.
Russ, again, has walked away from the business
Yeah.
as of today,
Yeah,
not notified us.
yeah.
We don't know when he's coming back, or even if he's going to reopen. I made a call late this afternoon to Jean to ask, what the, ABC has to say about, something like that. I said to Gene, in my mind, he's forfeiting his license. This is the second year in a row we have not been notified of him closing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay,
In order to
yeah.
maintain a year-round liquor license, which he has, it's not annual, he has to be open X amount of days per year. He is 2 years now,
Yeah.
not following that key piece of what the ABC says he has to do to keep the license. So I want to take him out of this
Okay,
until he's either
yeah, until next year.
had a chat with the
Yeah.
select board, sent us a letter. When I called Jean about it today, I asked her if she could reach out to him one more time. Was he aware of, the fact that he had an obligation to the select board to let us know that he was closing?
Yeah, no, I get it. We'll just not include him. He's closed now, right?
Yep.
They're not open,
Today
they're
was our
closed.
last day.
And they've closed, okay.
So Janet?
Yes,
Yeah, so this is the second year in a row,
right,
right?
that's been said,
And,
yep.
yes, and therefore, I agree with Kathleen. And he's closed, he had it on his sign. And if he wants to reapply, if he wants to reopen again, he can just come to us.
Right,
Yeah.
it's not a big
You
deal.
know.
So, anyone else on the list?
I have a question.
Okay,
Not having heard it from him, if we don't include him in the renewal of liquor license, does that imply he has lost his renewal? I'd rather hear it from him, what he plans to do with his business. We don't have a letter, and we don't have a direct conversation, so I don't want to approve anything that puts his
Well,
license in jeopardy.
so, as Helen said, he would just come back and apply for a new license.
Same way as this letter.
Yeah.
No
Okay,
prejudice.
got it.
He was notified.
He,
of this.
he knows, and, there's
but
some,
how I
possibly
feel
some
about
health issues or something there, so, yeah, I think we need to hear from him. Okay, so may I have any other questions or comments? All right, may I have a motion?
I move to renew the liquor licenses for the following
Oh,
establishments.
excuse me, hold on, sorry. Go ahead, from the audience, please state your name.
Tim Sayre. As to when businesses are open and closed, I'm not sure, I know you referred to ABC, okay, I know that's Alcohol Beverage Commission.
Thank you, yep.
If they require a certain amount of time, I understand. But for the board to require a business to be open when you're not there, to run that business and know whether they're making money or not, is unfair to me. I don't care if they have a year-round or not. It's up to them when they're open and when they're not open, because they're in the business of making money. I know that during November, December, January, February, especially January and February in this town, you look at the bookstore, restaurant and stuff, they close down from December 4th,
7th,
10th,
yeah.
until Valentine's Day, okay? It's not fair to tell a business, you have to be open. Okay, and I don't know if the liquor license speaks to that, so I may be out of place here, but I'm
Yes.
just making the comment about
Yes.
the other portion.
Can I
Okay?
do
Yeah.
that?
Thank you.
I had my hand.
May I,
Helen
Janice?
had her hand up first.
Sorry. I am a great champion of businesses getting to close when they need to close, but they have to come to us. Wait a minute, I'm answering your question. This is routine. In other words, if you have a year-round license and you want to close for whatever reason, repair, whatever, you come to this board and we give you permission to do that.
You actually- they
can't just
request
do it.
They request to close.
This happens all the time in this state, okay?
Right. Now, I'm going to answer. The Alcoholic Beverage Commission stipulates that they have to be open X amount of days per year. It's not me.
Yeah.
We are the licensing agent for the ABC.
Okay.
We have a criteria and rules and regulations that we have to follow.
And I understand that. Thank you.
So when the bookstore comes into close, they come before the board, we mark it off X amount of days, we're within the scope of the law. That's all we're doing here.
That's fine. I understand. I had to ask the question because
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know. I appreciate the clarification. Now, if you don't have a liquor license, you don't have to come before the board. If you have a year-round to close, you can close anytime you want, right? Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, thank you, yes.
I'm still a little bit confused. Did everybody else send a letter in for their renewal and Marconi Beach didn't? Because we don't have documentation. I don't feel comfortable removing
No,
Marconi.
let me explain. Talking to Jean today,
Yeah,
she notified him that he cannot just close the business down.
he's for
That-
sale though, right?
Okay.
Doesn't
sorry,
matter
It
the
doesn't
reason.
matter. The Alcoholic Beverage Commission says he has to be open.
Notified.
Has to be open X amount of days. Does he want to go from a year-round license to an annual? That's his option. Jean said, you're up for renewal tonight. Do you want to go before the select board to, to plead your case with regard to closing? He said, I don't care. His words, I don't care. I'll send them a letter. Nobody else has sent a letter.
So.
But has
he-
anybody else been called by Jean or been sent a letter?
Yes, yeah. They
Everybody
filled
has.
out a form.
Everybody's done what they're supposed to do but Marconi.
Yes.
Okay,
So
so
he
we're
does, he
uncomfortable.
does
in-
want to sell it, so that could be his disinterest.
Yeah, I
And he-
think he's kind of burnt out, but
Yeah.
I just want to make sure before I vote that should he decide he wants to renew his liquor license, he still has the door open to come before us and let us know his intentions. He's not
Yeah,
losing any
license-
rights
that
by,
license is still out
by
there.
removing him. Okay, got it. Thank you
So
for
he wants to
clarifying.
forfeit it.
Yeah, I got it.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Can you what?
Can I ask a
Yes.
quick question?
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay.
If someone else were, I don't think this would happen, to apply for his license, we could grant it to someone else, right?
You mean
And
like of the same building?
No, not the same building, just a liquor license, by not renewing it, it becomes open
Public, yeah.
for another restaurant to apply for. So it's not totally like he can just come back and
So-
apply if somebody else applies for it. But the other question I had really quickly is, he hasn't been closed for longer than the amount of days that he's allowed to be closed in the year so far, correct?
So the issue here is that when our clerk called him or said, you haven't filled in your paperwork or whatever, he didn't do it. So that's kind of why we're just saying, okay, no. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone being denied a liquor license in Wellfleet, when they come up for it,
If there's not enough.
for a restaurant. So we don't have a limited number.
Oh, yes.
Yes, we do,
Well-
Janet.
Yes, we do.
Yes,
I don't
there's
think
definitely
we
been
do.
people apply
State
for
gives
liquor
the town a
licenses.
limited number of licenses.
Yes, but I
So-
think that I can think of the new restaurants that have opened up and asked for extensions, and they get them, so.
Madam
So
Chair. Sorry.
what happens, Mike, is that by him not renewing his license, the word I'm going to use, and I used this to Jean, Jean was going to call somebody from the commission, is to forfeit it. Is he willing to forfeit the license? Which means that now it's back out in the domain of being available. There are obligations to holding a liquor
Sure.
license.
Yeah.
He just seems completely disinterested in
Madam Chair.
following through on those.
Madam Chair. Well, yeah, but he's a member of the business community. He's selling his restaurant. He's tired. And what he said to Jean was, I'll send a letter in. So it sounds to me like the letter's on the way. And in terms of forfeiting it, I'm not willing to vote for anything that leads to a chain of events that somebody forfeits their liquor license.
It's not for us to decide. The Alcoholic Beverage Commission has rules that you've got to live by if you've got a license. They might just say to him, you've now unintendedly or didn't know the consequences, you've now forfeited your license.
What, because his letter's late?
All right, so so I'm now at the point where I would be confused, and I would say, why didn't Jean McLaughlin, our clerk, say anything to us too?
Can't
So-
he stay in on the motion And if we don't get the
So,
letter.
okay, so why don't we exclude him from this and say, and then have another motion saying he may maintain his license if he comes to us before January 1st.
Right,
All
okay,
right?
perfect.
I'm happy with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Helen?
Yeah, if this hadn't already happened last year,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be
Right.
happy with it. Here's the thing. In order for another business restaurant to step up and say, we want to have a year-round liquor license, thereby, if you will, taking the slot, I'm not even sure, I think we are full up in terms
We are.
of limits. As that other restaurant would have to open and come before us to get a license to have a restaurant. You can have a restaurant without a liquor license to, pour. That's a separate license. So I had that in my head when I thought to myself, okay, if he wants to forfeit this, he knows it's tonight, he understands. He understood last year.
He's been in business a long time.
Yeah, he
you
really
know.
understands.
Yeah.
And if he's ambivalent about him, he's a good guy, it's a great restaurant, I
Yeah.
love it, but the point is, he knows what's going on, he has decided not to do the paperwork, he's aware it was, and he would have time to come back to us and reapply.
Right.
But
So,
okay, here's the last thing, it's unfair to all these other people that have done the paperwork and have reapplied properly, to sort of give one restaurant this kind of preference, oh, you don't have to get it in time.
so wait, so there have been exceptions to the rule, and we don't know what's really going on. We really don't have any paper except for Kathleen's word from Jean that he didn't say he didn't care about it.
I called her today.
Okay, but there's nothing in writing, so that the four of us really don't know exactly what's going on. When you sell a business, which he wants to do, I believe it's easier to sell the business if the license can be transferred. So there is a value to this. So I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I suggest if you can make a motion to exclude him and then make another motion, but if you don't want to do it, then don't. We'll just see who votes. But I think that we need to have something in writing from him, or at least something verbal. So, is this a motion?
It's a question. I'm not going to vote for renewing anything unless we have a separate motion that gives him the option of getting the
That's what I
letter in.
said.
Yeah,
That's what I
we
said.
just saw a presentation on the difficulty of doing business on the Cape and the need for jobs.
Yeah,
so.
there's some considerations there, and we want to be nice. He's a
Yeah.
good person. He's got a great restaurant.
And
Yep.
he's burnt out.
Yeah, so we're giving him the benefit of the doubt. So
Great.
may I have a motion?
I move to renew the liquor licenses for the following establishments for 1 year, beginning January 1st, 2020, and ending December 31st, 2020. Do I have to read them? or
Yes, you
can-
do.
Bookstore and restaurant, The Wagner at Duck Creek, Seaside Liquors, Wellfleet Marketplace, Wellfleet Spirit Shop, The Wicked Oyster, Wellfleet Harbor Actors Theater, PB Boulangerie Bistro, Wellfleet Preservation Hall, JB's Pizza and Grill, Blackfish Variety, Seashore, and Wellfleet Mobile.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, now does anyone want to make the second motion?
I move to renew the liquor license for Marconi Beach Restaurant, contingent on his appearance before the board or an explanation.
Yes.
Or letter, as to his intentions of being closed this season and compliance with the alcohol, the ABC.
Yeah, good, thank you. Is there a second? All in favor? Okay. good,
No.
Thank you. I
All
know,
opposed.
I know.
But I need to say why. I see this as an unfairness, not a kindness, given that
Okay.
Marconi Butch could reapply and get it from us before January 1st.
Not if he's in Florida.
That's
But
his
whatever.
issue.
That's
He's in
his issue, yeah, okay. All right. Board and committee appointments. We all know about the request of medical leave of absence from the Planning Board and the Energy and Climate Action Committee for David Mead Fox. Are there any questions about that?
Just a comment?
Okay.
Yeah, we've gotten the votes from both the committees he's on, and it's all being done properly.
Yes, and everybody wants him to maintain being on there. Okay, can I have a motion?
I move to approve the medical leave of absence for David Mead Fox from the Planning Board and the Energy and Climate Action Committee through December 2019.
Second?
All in favor? Thank you. And now we have Kate Clemens on the Commission of Disabilities. Do you want to come up and tell us, you have a great application, but would you tell us and the public what your interest is and why you want to do this briefly? And introduce yourself, yeah.
Okay. Hi, Kate Clemens. Good evening. I live in Wellfleet, right by the Boulangerie, just past it, up LeCount onto Kincaid. So, Director of Special Ed and Student Services at Cape Cod Tech. So it's not that I have a monofocus, that I am dipping my toe into supporting my community by being asked to be on this commission. I used to be very involved when my kids were younger in a whole variety. And then when I gave up being a teacher, and I had to fit myself into my new role, I was mainly focused for several years on my new job, my new title, the various pieces in my own school community that I was working on in those committees. And I kind of feel like I've grown into it a little bit, and I have room to breathe and think about ways to be back into the community. So
Great.
I thought that I would see about supporting this area.
Great,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Kathleen?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of this, but I mean, are there other Wellfleet residents on this commission?
As far as I know, there's one name, and it's been there for quite a while. When I was looking at areas that I maybe with prior experience might want to see about being involved with, this caught my eye. Every time I came back to it, it was just, I don't know who Frederick Gettner is, but it's just been the same.
Gactor?
It's been the same name for a while, so I'm
Fred
assuming he's
Gantner,
working
yeah.
independently and
Yeah.
happy
And
to lend a
do you know,
hand.
excuse me, Janet, do you know when you meet, or,
Do you know?
no, this is new to me.
To my knowledge, this committee has been inactive for quite some time. So as you get appointed to it, we'll be happy to help you get it restarted and
Okay,
start meeting again.
what do you
so.
perceive, maybe it's top 3 goals to be, to tackle?
Wait, Janet?
All right, Helen?
Yeah, so is there no charge for this?
There's a charge. I forgot to include it in the package. I
Yeah.
can read it to you now if you'd like. At the 1984 town meeting, it was voted to accept Charter 40, Section 8J of the Massachusetts General Laws establishing a municipal handicap commission consisting of 7 members. At the annual town meeting in 1922, Article 24, to see if the town will vote to change the name designation of the Handicap Commission establishment pursuant to a vote under Article 54 of the 1984 annual town meeting to the Commission on Disabilities. So apparently there is no charge, so that could be something that Ms. Clemens could do. That's all that's on the website, that's all I have.
And I think if any issues come up, or you might have some suggestions, and just oversee it and work with us and work with administration.
Well, Janet, is she going to be a committee of one?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Two.
There is a state a state commission of
Right.
disabilities that I'm
Be
sure probably has
liaison.
some resources that if you'd love to come into the office, I could sit down with you and we can try and
That sounds like
figure out what to do.
That sounds like, when I read those pieces online, the way I was interpreting it is thinking about how people with challenges are be able to access aspects of the town or interact with
yeah.
the town. And there's nobody looking at that right now.
Yeah,
So.
Great.
good.
Janet? However,
yes.
this is a local committee, right? And you need a charge, and you need to come before us and have a membership number. Don't make it too big. And you can't start holding meetings until you have a quorum, so you need to decide. And then you need to come before us. This is all good. It can happen easily. You need to come before us, and we need to sanctify your charge and the number of people you want on it. And I would take the charge as directly as possible from the state, and maybe just do the easy thing, which you've probably already thought of, which is to call up other communities that have these, or check them out online and see what their charges are and how they do with it. But you can't start having meetings until you do that.
I honestly have no interest in doing this by myself, but it's just been sitting fallow for so long.
Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah.
great.
I thought about, if I'm going to get involved, where could I put some energy?
Yeah,
Talk to-
call Fred.
And talk to Suzanne Grout-Thomas, because she's the person who knows about all the special services and stuff.
I can do that.
Good. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's great. You've got a great application, Wellfleet resident. You've had kids here and the whole thing, and, you know, if this doesn't work out, think of something else,
Yeah, all right,
you know? You know, just love to have you,
okay,
any way we can.
Yeah.
all right,
So work with Courtney.
I will,
Yeah, good.
all right.
So
thank
can
you.
I have a motion?
I move to appoint, well, no, we can't. We can't appoint you to something that doesn't exist.
So
I support.
But it does
I move
exist.
to-
Does exist.
No,
What?
it does exist?
it was voted in at the annual town meeting
so
in
that's still
'84
in
and '92.
place.
It's still in place. It just
Okay.
happens that nobody's been serving on it with Mr. Genscher.
Okay,
It's
okay.
just him.
I move to appoint Kate Clemens to the Commission on Disabilities for a term expiring June 30th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, Kate.
And
So now
try,
we're
you get
committee
to
of
be
2,
creative.
5 more to go.
Yeah,
so try to find this other guy.
she will. Yeah, she got it.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks. If it's Fred Gackner, he actually is on the board of Outer Cape Health and stuff too, so, but he's findable. I
Okay.
know his name.
We will help you track
Yeah.
them down.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and now, last but not least, for our board commit, no, sorry. Oh, yeah, okay, it is. Move to approve the change of alternate member to regular member and vice versa with Jed Foley and Christine Wisniewski.
Wisniewski.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
No, Janet, I was at the last recycling committee meeting, and they sent us a letter. Jed is just going to step down due to time constraints
Yep.
and be the alternate, and Christine, who had been the alternate, is going to move up full-time.
Yep, good.
I have a question
Okay.
to Kathleen. But does he understand he can't miss 4 meetings in a row?
Yeah, he does.
Okay, good, thank you.
Great guy.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I know.
I move to approve the change of Jed Foley to an alternate member and Christine, say the word,
Wisniewski.
to a regular member on the recycling committee effective immediately.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, thank you.
Not to rehash a previous motion, but on the Disability Commission, if you look on the state's website, Section 8J of Chapter 40 provides the charge for the committee. It
Oh, okay.
directs what the committee works on.
Yeah,
We got one, good.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to Town Hall driveway. Use of town property, Town Hall driveway for the Friends of the Library, July 5th and August 2nd, 2020. Any questions, comments? This has been going on for a number of years. Can I have a motion? If no
I
no
move to
questions or
approve the
comments?
use of Town Hall driveway on July 5th, 2020, and August 2nd, 2000.
10.
It can't be-
Typo.
Huh? Can't be
Oh.
10, it's a typo.
2020.
Yeah,
And August 2nd, 2020, from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., with rain dates of July 12th and August 9th of 2020, by the Friends of the Wellfleet Library, subject to the conditions, if any, listed on the application form for a fee of blank. I'm hoping we've waived the fee.
Well, you have to make that in your motion.
We didn't waive the fee?
It hasn't been waived yet.
Would we like to waive the
So
fee?
you have to pay the application fee, but the fee to use the town property is up to the board to determine
And
how
that-
you'd like
and
to
that we
charge
waive.
as per the policy that we have.
I would like to waive the fee
Yes.
Yes,
for the library.
Second.
Okay.
okay. All right. You finished with the motion, right?
Yes.
Okay. Helen seconded. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you for waiting.
Thanks for staying.
Okay, and now we have the approval of use of Whitecrest Beach by Kendra Longo. I'm assuming she's not here, right? You know, we kind of have this policy, and I understand that people don't live here, but I do have a number of questions that need to be answered. Do you think you can answer
So
them, Courtney?
I did email Ms. Longo and ask if she was coming. She was informed by Suzanne Grout-Thomas that these were pretty straightforward and she didn't need to be here. I honestly was expecting Suzanne to be here to answer your questions because I can understand where, I can probably guess where some of your questions already are.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say, and
I think,
this is for a wedding at Whitecrest Beach on June 27th from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., 120 guests, seating for guests, parking needed, restroom facilities needed. So this is her application. So is the wedding going to be up top in the parking lot? Is it going to be down on the beach? Are they going to have 120 chairs down on the beach?
from, let me just pull it up really quick. From what I understand, I don't know where on the beach it will be, but there will be chairs. I'm pretty sure Suzanne has informed her that there won't be staff available to help her and her party carry these chairs up and down the beach. That's something they have to take care of. And I also know, let me see. I think 120, yeah. She did move it from August, like the end of August to June, hoping that it wouldn't be as problematic, I guess, with parking. But Suzanne does say in the application, one bathroom will be open, parking is as available, charging until 5 p.m., $30 a vehicle, no reserved spots. Jay Norton, I believe, is the one who said the applicant is responsible for trash removal. So I believe she's aware and she's spoken to Suzanne, but I can't really speak for anything further than just what I've heard.
So could you write these questions down and ask her or Suzanne to call her that, where is it going to be, at the top or on the beach? Is she having 120 chairs? And are they little beach chairs or
yeah.
are they regular
She
chairs?
is having 120 chairs. I don't know what type they are,
Okay.
but she's hoping to have chairs, yeah.
Okay.
It says seating for guests.
Did she check with high tide, low tide? And that she does have to pay for parking. That is, that's often a busy weekend. It's often a busy weekend.
Pre-4th of July.
Yeah. And, okay, does anybody else want to ask any questions of her that we can have answered next week and we could postpone this?
I don't have any questions because I've looked at the back of this.
Yep.
And the bathrooms will be open, the parking is available, $30 a pop, there's a lot of parking there. And we can condition it that the event can only happen down on the beach. I think it's completely unreasonable and probably not likely that they would be having a wedding in a parking lot for a lot of reasons, particularly on a weekend. But we could put the words in our, approval saying conditional on the wedding only taking place down on the beach.
120 people.
Well, I'd rather be up in the parking lot with 120
Yeah.
chairs.
Yeah, that's. a
But I
lot.
don't know what kind of, so that's
Well,
kind of what I
would
want
just
to
say
know.
no to that.
Yeah.
In other words, if somebody wanted to have a wedding of even 3 people in a parking lot, I would also say no to that, because it's,
That's
In
been
parking
done.
lots?
Well, Whitecrest Beach is a pretty beautiful parking lot.
oy,
It's
on a busy weekend?
Well, it might rain. I don't know. I wish these people would just kind of make an effort to reach out. So I agree that we've got the back. So if you want to email her, Courtney, please, saying that we need to know whether it's going to be on the beach or up in the parking lot. And if there are going to be 120 chairs, which you just confirmed that there are going to be, and that she's aware of a $30 a vehicle at that time. And, you know, how many bathrooms are there at White Crest?
There will only be one open, Suzanne says.
I mean, one being one stall or one
Like,
side?
there won't be any extra ones, I guess. Like, I don't know if they put out more
No,
in the summer, but
respectfully, it doesn't say
Helen,
that.
I have
it
my
says
hand up.
there will be one restroom open on the back where Suzanne
No.
made her comment.
Well,
No.
that's what it says.
No, it says, number one, bathrooms, S will be
Oh, all
open.
right.
Number two, parking is as available,
Okay.
is,
Well, then I think there's only that one bathroom in the far parking lot at White Crest anyway, so then that's the bathrooms. I'm guessing it
Okay.
means one bathroom per gender with many stalls will
Okay.
be open.
All right. Yeah, so just make sure she knows about that. Mike, were you going to say anything?
I was.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I want to.
Yeah, I'd like to talk to the, not via Suzanne, to the person, because there's 120 people. Are there kids? Do they all know about erosion? What percentage of the parking lot is going to get taken up by their cars? So that means nobody else can go there. How do we feel about that?
Well, if they're paying, you know.
Yeah, that's true, but litter, and I think in no way am I comparing this to Oyster Fest, but I think when we let 120 people isn't insignificant. I just kind of walk through all the concerns.
Right, it's a
And
big
not just rubber stamp a piece of
Coming up
paper.
and down.
Never having even met the bride or anybody from the wedding. I just have a nightmare of people tromping up and down the dune,
Carrying chairs. and
carrying
other
chairs,
things.
and
Yeah, so
so,
if you want to check with her and she's fine with it, and we can postpone this for another
Yeah.
meeting,
I'm
if she
considering
has
an
any
email now.
comments. Is that good?
Yeah, I don't need to.
what were
talk.
you going to say, Mike?
I was just going to say that. I'll just say.
Oh, come on.
We want to
We're
know.
bursting with
Okay, fine.
suspense.
The parking lot can, I mean, the beach handles that many people on a regular
Right, I think-
basis.
I think
There's only
there's
capacity for the
300.
amount of people to park
Yeah.
there. I don't really see an issue with the amount of people. $110 seems like a pretty cheap place to have a big wedding.
Yeah.
I will say that. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I
I've never
agree.
booked a wedding before, but I know people spend a lot of money on weddings, and it seems like
Real cheap.
a very cheap place to have a wedding. I'm not opposed to that. I think we should have some cheap places for people to get
Yeah.
married. But, you know, that said, maybe we should start thinking about the scale of the event as to the amount we charge
Yep.
as a town.
Janet, I mean, that comes up in terms of our use of town property, but I agree. 120 people isn't, 10 or 15 standing at Mayo Beach, you might not be able to afford to go somewhere else. I'm all for that. But by the time we're laying out the beach and nobody else can use it for that time,
Well, they can use it,
I'm
though.
a bit
That's
of
the
a
whole thing is
capitalist.
that-
I'm
that-
kind of,
yeah.
I'm kind of like, what effect could having more aggressive fees on town property do to Dan Hort's pie chart that's in the budget every year? Dan, that was for you.
So if you guys don't feel 120 people, I mean, other people will be using the beach, right?
Yeah.
If,
Not if all the parking's used up.
but all the parking won't be used up because they're not going to be 120 cars. They're all going to carpool. They'll probably
Are they? We don't know.
Sure they will. Well, there'll be at
That-
least two to a car.
If they have an aggressive carpool policy, if there's a good carpool policy, I feel better, because then residents can still,
Yeah.
go there.
So I guess my wish is that the person applying just is aware of certain complications, that certain things that might arise to make her wedding run more smoothly. Well, let's move on. Either let's make a motion to postpone until she knows about this, or make a motion to approve.
yes, and the only thing I was going to say was when we got to the fees, I was going to say we need to charge a larger fee for this,
Thank you.
okay? Because of the number of people.
Yes.
And also, could we just make sure that when somebody applies for something like this is not like 5 people and a notary, that they know that somebody should show up. Not
Jean-
your fault.
No, we ask them, we tell them, sometimes
And
they
then they
ask to be
don't.
presented on a certain date and they still don't show up. Like, She
Well,
lives
there
in
is gonna be-
Westwood. I can't control. People are gonna people.
Yeah.
And they
And
can
it is
send-
snowing in
And
Westwood.
I know it's important to you guys,
so-
and I stress that.
Yeah, and they can send somebody. You see what I mean? We've had that. We've had somebody
Okay,
who's.
so I'm just going to say,
liaisons.
this is, this.
I mean, I
yeah.
don't, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
for this in particular, there's a lot of people who just like the sound, like, we've had people call and say, I've never been to Wellfleet, but I want to get married there. So I'm from
Okay.
Florida, so like,
We don't want to
Destination.
cause you any more stress.
no, and we
Yeah.
always ask them, so please know that, like, we ask them, and at the end of the day, if they want to show up, they're going to show up. But I did ask her, she said she was told that she didn't need to be here, and these were straightforward, so.
Oh, Suzanne, oh dear. Okay.
All right, so anyone want to make a motion?
I move to postpone the use of town property for White Crest Beach for June the 27th.
Second?
And do you want to stipulate until the applicant has clarified some of her positions? Okay,
Until the applicant has come before the Board of Selectmen and answered a few minor detail questions.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to vote against that because I don't want to require her to show up. I just want anybody that can answer the
Okay.
questions. And we could just do no action, guys. That's a
Yeah.
good.
No, so do we
Either
even
way.
need to make a motion to postpone?
Yeah, let's just
You
take
just
Let's
say
just
no.
not
NA.
take action.
okay,
NA.
all right. Very good. Okay, so now we have the Hilta Trust Purchase Update from the Town Administrator.
So just briefly, the purchase of the Hilta Trust has closed. As most people are aware, the survey that was done using the Spillane case, I believe is what it is, came in with less acreage than what we originally thought we would be purchasing. We waited for the appraisal, which still came in excess of what town meeting had approved for the purchase. So because it came in at $2,450,000 and town meeting had approved a maximum of $2 million, the board was still comfortable with paying that price for the property. When we did the taking to take the land, we took all of the property that was owned by the Hilta Trust. So we actually filed to take the 250 acres, just in case somewhere down the line, some other court case says, no, you're supposed to use this water line. It wouldn't be then that, oh, we only purchased 150 acres and Hilta still owns the extra 100 acres. We took all of the property. So I don't expect it to change, but if it should, we have ownership to the entire property. So we are protected either way.
Great. Kathleen?
Yeah, Dan, Madam Chair, through you to Dan, two things. When the appraisal came in, I don't need to, I know the answer to this. I want this for the audience, so indulge me. When the appraisal came in, for the amount that you just spoke of, that was for the 162 acres?
That is correct.
Thank you. Second clarification, everything that you've just spoken of, and what we did approve of, and what we did sign and take, was well within the scope of what was approved at town meeting?
Yes, that is
Thank you
correct.
very much.
Couple
Any
things?
other questions or comments?
Yes, couple comments. I checked a third time with the Ethics Commission, and I can now participate in any discussion of this because my money is no longer affected. I got a very clear second determination that confirmed the first one. The second thing I want to say is everybody go home, or if you're at home when you're watching this, Google NGVD 88 surveys, and you will understand why Dan said what he just did. Because this kind of survey is not actually locally applicable, and in my opinion, the best way to find out what the low mean tide would be, and, you know, humor me here, but really I thought about it, would be to, at every half moon for an entire year, to do a drone survey of the area and see where low mean tide goes. Because what came out in the survey, which I've now seen the map of. You know, I started participating, getting material after I no longer had conflict, according to the Ethics Commission. So I've seen everything pretty much now. And I thought, I know that the tide goes lower than that, and, you know, a lot of times, and sometimes it doesn't. But go home and Google NGVD 88, which stands for 1988, and see what they base it on. They base it on 1 point up in Canada. Okay? So we said we'd do the survey, but our use of that property would not have been changed in any way, no matter how many acres were in it.
I knew that.
Thank you. I'm saying it
Yes,
for the public.
good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any
I
other?
don't think I'm going to Google anything. I'm Google out.
Yeah. Justina?
Janet, quickly, I think for me, it's a fabulous accomplishment on the part of the town that voted for Hilda, acquiring the Hilda Trust, on the efforts of Helen. And the purchase accomplishes the objective of town ownership of a third of our grants. As Dan mentioned, the Hilda deed is for 254 acres of the trust. And I've been informed that according to the new survey, we've also purchased a piece of beach at Sewell's Gutter, which now extends Town Beach from Indian Neck Beach Breakwater to Omaha Road. So that's uninterrupted beach access and ability to walk on it by citizens. And finally, I had to crunch some numbers for a recent talk, and fully 30% of our year-round residents own some form of shellfish permit. So this increases the acreage available now under town control to do both wild picking and recreational picking. So there's any number of benefits, and it's a great day for the town. And thank you, Helen, for your generous contribution and initiatives that helped make this possible.
You're welcome. I want to add one more factoid. If you read the deed, and this deed was read right at the beginning of this process in March, we also have now deeded access to King Philip Road, which is in a subdivision, and also Hiawatha Road, I believe Hiawatha Road, and possibly other ways in the subdivision. That needs to be confirmed, but at least in the deed, we have now legal rights to use that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually a pretty big deal.
Definitely.
No, it's been a long process, but it was well worth everything. And I think it's great that we are protecting our town, our shellfishermen, our beach access, nature, salt marsh. It's good.
Thanks to the voters of the town.
Yes,
Thanks to the
thank you
voters
all.
of the town.
Okay, thank you, Town Administrator, for all your work.
Yeah.
For your tiny little role in this.
It's been, for those of you who have recused yourself, it's been
Thank you.
somewhat long, but well worth,
Yeah.
big effort, but well worth it.
And
I'm glad that it has been completed.
And thank you for the work when I couldn't, I don't like dropping the ball.
You did.
It was a
No,
team
I had
effort.
to.
It was a team effort.
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Approval of town meeting schedule?
No.
What?
Select board meeting schedule.
I'm sorry, yeah, meeting schedule, yeah.
Okay. I have go ahead.
Kathleen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gone through this, and we ordinarily, or usually have an election day after our annual town meeting, and that is not on this schedule.
But
But
that's
it's
not,
not a meeting schedule.
we don't meet on that day. This is just our meetings.
So it's not,
No, this is just the select board meeting schedule, so it's just the second and fourth Tuesdays of
oh,
every
okay,
month.
so this isn't the whole, all right.
No, that town meeting election schedule, Dan already presented at a different meeting, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Janet? Mm-hmm. Couple things. I'm going to have surgery on December 13th, okay? I did my best to choose it so that it would be as far away as possible from a select board meeting, but that was the only thing they could give me. So one thing I want to say about this is, even though we don't have anything coming up, except unfortunately the joint meeting with the FinCom right after that, I would like very much to, first of all, alert you to that. This is not a chosen vacation. I really don't want to, this is my job, it's one of my jobs, and I really don't want to miss any meetings, so. But what I want to bring to your attention is, we have a meeting on December 10th.
So
I don't think we do.
wait.
Yes, we do.
We're doing 2020.
this is the
aren't we?
2020 meeting schedule. This is for next calendar year.
Yes, I know that.
You're having surgery in a year?
Hold on, no, I'm having it on December 13th, but what I'm telling you about starts in December. We have a meeting on December 10th, we have a meeting, are we going to have a meeting on December 24th, the day before Christmas?
No, the last
No.
meeting for 2019 is December 17th. The only
Okay.
meetings in December are the 10th and the 17th.
Okay, well, I can't, see, that's
Okay,
the
but
reason.
that's not, no, I'm sorry.
That's the
Just
joint meeting.
Point of order, this is not discussion of what's on the agenda. The agenda item is discussion of the 2020 meeting schedule. So
Yeah.
if there's other personal issues, you can email me and we can try and work around them, but this is only trying to approve the
This is
2020
next year.
meeting schedule.
Yes, well, my point about that is, if the last meeting's on the 17th.
No, no.
Oh,
This is about
I'm going
this
into
year.
January now and about the fact of how many meetings we will have between meetings. So, 2, and then the next one is on January 14th. Is it okay with everybody that we have that many meetings between, that many weeks between meetings during that time?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, fine. I don't know what I'm going to do then about December 17th. I will perhaps postpone my surgery.
Wait,
Why?
I don't
yeah.
understand your point.
So what's, yeah. so-
I'm not going to be able to get out of the house for at least a week,
Okay.
okay? I'm not going to be able to drive for 3 weeks. I can get rides from people.
Are you asking to move a January meeting, or are you asking
No.
to cancel the
No, I was
December
just
17th?
talking about the space between meetings.
So I just want to know, I know it is 4 weeks.
And that's okay with
and that,
everybody.
yeah,
I think the planet will keep spinning
it's just
around.
mostly because of the holidays, and even when we have like between this meeting and I think our last one, or yeah, there's been twice this year when there's a month that has 5 weeks in it. We have like 3 weeks in between this fourth
Yeah.
Tuesday and then the
Yeah.
second Tuesday the following month. So
I don't
we have-
mind 3.
and
I
we-
do
yeah.
mind 4.
Well, we have,
Okay.
we have holidays, and.
And there's still- I
that's
mean, there
just
will be
how
a
it lands. It's the lay of the, lay of
So
the
you hate the
universe.
plan to take August
we
off,
can-
right?
What? I didn't hear.
Wait,
It was funny.
permission to speak?
Yes, please.
No.
If it's funny, I
No,
want to hear it.
Not granted.
No.
Okay. So are we approving the meeting schedule for 2020?
I move.
I checked that there were
Actually, we
no
don't even-
Jewish holidays.
Janet,
We actually, yeah, go ahead.
briefly, this might be a crazy idea, but I had talked briefly with a couple of people. Does it make any sense to have just one meeting in August, given that people have work commitments and family commitments, and it's hot, and a lot of committees take a break in August, and I don't know if that's something we want to think about or think about closer to the summer.
Well, I know last August, we were quite busy with
We were nailed.
extraneous other meetings.
yeah, there was one meeting that we ended up skipping just because there was nothing like pressing coming up, but that was, I mean, we put that out there to everybody with due time.
Yeah, I think
and-
we could take it as it comes.
Take it as it comes.
Madam Chair, respectfully, it was not put out to everybody. It was, and we addressed it at a work meeting. In other words, no rescheduling, no cancellation, please, of scheduled meetings unless we all weigh in on it.
It does say at
And-
the top unless otherwise noted, so.
Yeah, well, wait a minute, I'm talking about last summer. We were 5 weeks between meetings, we had a lot of issues. And we all have different busy schedules, you know, and I like to be able to count on meeting every 2 weeks, and there were quite a few cans that were being kicked down the road, and still are, that we could have met on. And I get it. I don't like to go to a lot of meetings. I am affected by the heat. But I think it's a big mistake to have long hiatuses between
So it's very
meetings.
Told you it
unusual
would
that we
send you
did
into a
that,
tizzy.
and I would probably say, I can't remember exactly what it was, but there were a lot of other meetings that you weren't coming to and couldn't come to
I
that
go
we
to-
were doing extras.
I
We
was
did
going
our
to a
jobs.
lot of meetings during
Okay,
that
all right.
time, too.
I'm not
Ken.
going to get into
I
it.
just want to know, we can always schedule a work meeting.
Right. We
On a
can
week
always-
that works for
yeah,
everybody.
yeah.
It's not a holiday week, if that would appease the crowd.
Okay,
I'd like to make
so,
a motion.
yes, please.
I move to approve the 2020 meeting schedule as printed in the packet,
Second.
as amended.
All in favor?
No, as printed in the packet,
Yeah.
sorry, second.
That's good. All in favor? Raise that hand, raise that hand. Thank you, thank you. All right. So,
I have one.
So Helen, you can think about when your surgery is and how we do it. I don't, if you want to,
Even on Friday, the 20th, I could do it.
a selectmen's meeting on a Friday.
Sure, we can meet
Yeah.
anytime we want.
So we have the 9th and the 23rd,
Or
right?
we could meet between the 25th and the 31st during that week.
Yeah,
In other words, I will be, I will be
Yeah.
functional, but I won't be, if we could meet on, Monday the 30th, right? That would be great. I could come to that. Or if we could meet on Friday the 20th.
so when are you going to be out?
Well, I'm going out on the 13th. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to be operated on. I'm not going to be,
Until when?
well, it's 3 weeks before I can drive, but I'm not worried
Okay.
about that. The first
Yeah, you
week
can
you're
get a ride.
supposedly kind of out of it, and some
All
of
right,
us
so you
have
can't
passed.
do no 20th.
No, 17th, I can't do.
We don't have a meeting on the
I don't
17th.
have a
Didn't-
meeting.
We
For
have a meeting
2019, yeah.
On the
Oh.
December 17th to hear
it's
from the big
Christmas.
3+ for budget.
Oh, I see.
I
Okay.
really don't want to miss that.
Well, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, how about,
Because the other committees are all scheduled to come, right? They all know about it. They're scheduled to
We've already
come.
set 'em up for it.
okay, I have to say that I did tell the town administrator and the chair at one point that I was going to have this surgery on December 13th.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
I'll
I didn't
consider
know it
changing
was-
it.
I didn't know it was like a 5-day. No, you might be fine by that Tuesday. You might be fine.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days later?
Yeah, yeah. People are up and walking that day now,
Okay, that
so-
would be great.
So why don't you wait and see, and if it's really hard, someone can give you a ride, we can.
No, somebody's going to have to get, that's
Yeah.
not the issue. The
Okay.
issue is, I can be on a
You're gonna be
walker. I've
with
done
it.
that.
Yeah, so why don't
Sorry
you just
about
wait?
that. I
Yeah.
just don't like to miss, particularly if
I
it's
know you
departments.
don't. Yeah, so we'll just work around it, and,
Yeah,
yeah, if you need to leave early, you could leave early if you start feeling funny.
oh, no.
Mike?
I hate to go backwards, but I just have been concerned about the motion that I made before, because I made the motion for the renewal of the liquor license contingent on him sending a letter. Well,
Or appearing, yeah. I
right,
think we met
and-
with both. Go ahead.
Right, by January 1st. I didn't intend that to mean that if he just sends any letter that his license is renewed for a year, and I
Okay.
don't know if the language that I used is sufficient.
Madam Chair, can he make the motion again?
Do you want me to read what I have?
Yeah,
Yeah.
read
We have
what,
to- we have to
read
do-
what the
No,
motion
maybe it's
said.
fine.
What I recorded was Devasto moved to renew the liquor license for Marconi Beach Restaurant contingent upon the owner's appearance before the board or a letter of explanation as to his intentions of being closed this season and compliance with the ABC.
Should
wrong
we
with that?
I mean,
reconsider?
we can,
With the
Jean and I can
renewal
also,
with the approval of the
this-
board.
Yeah,
That's all anybody else had to
Yeah.
do.
to be approved.
I mean,
Right. Yeah,
They just sent
okay,
the letters.
sure. All right, I'm fine with it. I
Okay.
didn't,
Yeah.
I didn't remember exactly how I said it.
I'm taking his license for you to sign out of the signature packet tonight, so it won't come back. I'll make sure that it won't come back to you for signature without you guys approving it first.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, that sounds good.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect.
Okay, now moving on to the review of open meeting law complaint. Response, this is, Who wasn't at that meeting?
Me,
You were the only one, right?
I was the only one? No, I don't
think
know.
so,
No,
right?
Justina
you weren't
wasn't
either. You
there.
weren't either, yeah, I knew that, okay.
So, Madam Chair, I, at that meeting, just wanted to hear whatever we had heard back from town council, because one of the things that happened at that meeting was that Mr. Hort, contacted town council about how we processed it. And I wanted to be sure that we had it on the agenda, to put it out there in a second meeting for the public, and also just so that Justina and Mike could hear about it. So through you to Dan, can you just sort of go over what town council said about it, please?
So town council basically said to the Attorney General's office that we did not violate the open meeting law and explained why we did not violate the open meeting law. She did acknowledge, as the board requested, that we could have been more transparent by including her name in the actual agenda item, but the open meeting law did not require that, only the guidelines required that. Town council also spoke up to the Attorney General's office, asking for them to consider the fact that this person repetitively files open meeting law complaints and wastes both municipal and Commonwealth resources, and wanted to acknowledge that with the Attorney General's office. Conceivably, the basis of what we're looking at here is I could paint a room in town hall and paint it yellow, and somebody could file an open meeting law complaint to say they don't like the color. It's not a legitimate open meeting law complaint, but because there isn't any recourse, you would be required to call a meeting and respond to the open meeting law complaint. So that's what we're trying to get away from. This was not a violation. The remedies requested by the complainant were not remedies that are provided for under the open meeting law, and we're just trying to get that acknowledged, so.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So if a citizen had felt that she or he was involved in something and we met on it, in a fully legal fashion, and that citizen would have liked to know about it, they could write to us and just say, wish I'd known. Or I watched the video and here's what I think about it. In other words, there are so many ways to object to this prior to filing an open meeting law complaint with a state agency. I appreciate the attentiveness, and we're here to give, to respond.
Yes, yeah.
But this is something unusual in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think what I have underlined here is that the board acknowledges that the agenda could have been more specific and referenced Ms. Ahern by the name, but we felt it was included, her email and the letter of the planning board's response was included in the meeting's agenda packet, which is available online and in our meetings. So, it's maybe, yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Kathleen?
Yeah, I just want to say that, we can't keep continuing to respond to knee-jerk reactions, with regard to this situation. I don't know how to put it, but I am confident that we did follow the letter of the open meeting law.
Yes, we did.
And this small meeting that we had about this, because we needed to respond in a timely fashion, it was videoed, and that was, put out there very clearly. The actual open meeting law doesn't say that you have to put, it's in the guidelines, and it's very reasonable, and we acknowledge that. But we did comply with the letter of the law,
Yes.
and the chair did know about it, and it was posted. And unfortunately, if somebody makes this kind of complaint, we have to respond to it. And I just wonder, what's the point? One of my favorite things in the letter from our attorney is it says, this has cost time and it has cost money. And I don't think it's achieved the result that, I don't think it's achieved a good result, you know?
Well, as I said,
thank
it's a
you.
knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
If I can just insert one thing also, in the interest of transparency, this letter was received today, so it was not included in your agenda packet, but I will include it tomorrow. I will include
Yeah.
it in the same section where you see the agenda packet. So if anybody is interested in reading this response from town council, they will be able to do so, and the complainant also will receive a copy of this.
Oh,
Okay,
thank you,
thank
that's
you.
perfect. And
Thank
maybe
you.
note the date on which you received it. I guess that's part of
Yeah.
it, just so that, yeah, okay.
Yep, okay, Justina?
I thought this was a great letter from our attorney and very thorough. I'm wondering, given the fact that I believe that there's multiple open meeting complaints that we have to respond to from the same individual, if we could consider having a form letter where we summarize how many open meeting law complaints that have been received in the past as an addendum, and then have a short explanation of why the next one is, the grounds are insufficient with the backup information as the history.
I think what we're going to do here is we're going to wait and see how the Attorney General responds to
I see.
this, and then give them the additional information, so.
Makes sense. But maybe in the future,
Yeah.
I mean, I can talk, I mean, I'm concerned about the drain of resources.
Yeah.
I'm sure this wasn't this is a great letter, and I know we had to have it, but I'm sure it wasn't free to write it, and then the meeting wasn't free in terms of the time commitment of the select board members to come in, and it just starts to add up in terms of financially, in terms of our work
Time-wise.
budget of hours that isn't infinite, in terms of town staff. I wonder if
Yeah.
there's a way that we can comply with, we don't have to solve it tonight, but if we could streamline our response, because we're going to keep
Yeah.
getting them, I think.
I have a
Yeah,
new point
Mr.
to
Hort does a good job of being concise in his responses, but he may want to do something for his own convenience.
I have a new point to make.
Okay.
So, you know, I'm in love with open meeting law, I'm in love with the conflict of interest law. I continue to need to know more, to study it, to reread it. And how many times on different boards and committees, and by the way, remember, we have a policy that we're supposed to help people comply with the law and with regulations if we can. I don't make open meeting law complaints. I just say to somebody who's on a committee, you know, even if I'm just in the audience, hey, you can't do electronic communication, sharing opinions. You know, just open meeting law 101, I don't file a complaint. I just try to help. And then
Well, that's- yeah.
often I'll email people, I'll just send them the open meeting law, right? It's not about shaking my finger at anybody. It's about, let's just try to do it better, you know?
This has been
Yeah.
a knee-jerk
Yeah,
reaction.
it may be somebody just wanting to,
I don't know, conjecture,
us.
let's not go there,
well,
please.
okay. Good.
I have one more.
Yes.
One thing to say. The spirit of the open meeting law is to make sure that we don't deliberate behind closed doors. And so, it's a waste of everybody's time when you're making an open meeting law complaint and you know that that is not the issue in which you're complaining. Clearly, there was no effort to deliberate or to opine behind closed doors. There was no nefarious intent, no malintent, and the spirit of the open meeting law is why it was developed. It's not something that should be used as a weapon or weaponized, and it is being weaponized against the select board currently, and it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time and money. I'd like to know actually how much it costs. It costs the state of Massachusetts to respond too, you know, to do these responses. when it's clearly a non-issue. So
Yeah.
I would advise whoever files an open meeting law complaint to know the law, to file a complaint in the spirit of what the law was created for, and otherwise use their time more constructively. That's all I
Well
have to say.
said, very well said, thank you. Agreed. Okay, moving on to Select Board reports.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Okay, so three of us, and it was a posted meeting for the Select Board, attended a private organization's, the Wellfleet Shellfishermen's Association meeting that had Sarah Peak, Representative Peak, and Senator Sear at the top of the room. It was productive. There was a lot of information shared. I'm working on the minutes for that. I took notes, and, we'll submit minutes, which we can get at our next meeting. And then I went to and why was this not videoed? The NRIB Shellfish Advisory Board joint meeting with huge amounts of information about planning, harbor planning, climate change mitigation. It was kind of an extraordinary meeting. I learned a lot, and I'm glad I went. And then I went, as did, I think, Janet, you were there at the Herring River Stakeholder meeting, which was also good. And tomorrow, although this is not a report, I'm going to go to the Herring River Restoration Technical Committee team meeting. That's my report.
okay. Go ahead, Kathleen.
On the 5th of November, I met with the Recycling Committee at my request to commend them on their efforts working with SPAT and eliminating plastic cups with regard to the Oyster Fest. But I asked if there's more that we could do with regard to removing plastic from Oyster Fest. Preservation Hall, Winslow Tavern, both were serving beverages in plastic. And I think that our recycling committee is going to, either look at creating a bylaw or strengthening our efforts at Oyster Fest for, eliminating plastic. That committee does a lot here in town.
They really do.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was at the top of the agenda, but I stayed for the whole meeting because you just learn so much, It's just, yeah, that's my report. Thank
So
you.
along the plastic lines at the Cape Cod Selectmen's and Councilors Association meeting last Friday, our December meeting, which is the second Friday of every month at 7:30 a.m., is going to be at the Cape Cod Technical School, which is down by the Bourne Bridge. But it is going to be on recycling
Yeah.
because it's not just Wellfleet, it's not just Cape Cod, but everybody has, recycling has become a major issue everywhere in the state.
Do you have the date for that?
Yeah, it's the day I'm
Second
getting
Friday.
operated on, December 13th, if that's the second Friday in December.
Thanks. I'll let them know.
Need a ride? Going to Falmouth Hospital?
No, I'm going to Boston.
Okay. And I am going to tell the recycling committee, I don't see many people, you'd have to leave like at 6:30 in the morning to get there, but,
I think Lydia wants to go.
yeah. And,
I can let her know if you want.
no, I've got a whole list of people to email, and she's one of them, so, but it really is, it's huge, and somewhere, the state is considering banning plastic bags. I don't know, I don't remember who in the State House mentioned it, but, yeah, it's big.
Just
It's
as an
unfortunate.
FYI, I don't remember which community it was. It was maybe Truro, probably Truro. But I was contacted by a recycling committee in another community who wanted to talk to our recycling committee to find out, to be used as
Yeah.
a resource. They love the the new water filling stations we have and wanted
yeah.
to find out information. So our committee is actually being a resource for other communities now too, so.
Yeah,
Nice.
good. No, our recycling committee is great, so kudos. Any other any other select board reports?
Janet?
Yes.
$100 pencil.
Helen already talked about the Wellfleet Shell Fishermen's Association meeting that Mike and I were at, but it was nice to get the support from Julian Sear and Sarah Peak and the acknowledgement of the importance of the job space that shell fishing requires, as well as a lot of information on the path forward with the Cutler Bill. And I also survived giving the opening remarks at the Harbor Conference.
Good
which
job. I heard you did a good job.
I hope so. I practiced a
She
lot.
did.
But
She
I
was great.
spoke about the shellfishing industry and hopefully the synergy between that and the environmental goals. That was nice.
Thank you for doing that. Any other select board
That's
reports?
probably Mike next year, right?
Yeah. Town administrators report? Any questions?
Biggest thing for us right now is we're starting the budget process, so we are, staff has submitted their budgets, and then we're meeting individually with each department to go over and review their budgets, so that'll be most of November for us.
Okay.
And a quick question for Dan.
Uh-huh.
Dan, very quickly, anything you want to say about your meeting at Center of Coastal Studies regarding the CMZ grant? Or was that just kind of routine, moving it along?
You know what, it's really, it's a part of my job that's fun, because you see like 3 communities all working together with a nonprofit group on the Cape, and it's like, this doesn't happen everywhere. And it's really kind of exciting to participate in something like that and hear what they're doing, so,
Well, I'm sure you did a great job representing Wellfleet.
thank you.
Kathleen?
Yeah, Madam Chair, through you to Dan, are we likely to hear something back from the DCR or DOT?
So, I emailed back and forth with the DOT last week, and they thought I was going to set up a meeting, and I was waiting for them to tell me what days would be
Yeah.
good for them.
Okay.
So I'm waiting on that. DCR has indicated that they want to come to Wellfleet after the first of the year. I've said this before, and so I don't want it to be a shock to people, but I think DCR is coming back to show us what their final plans are.
Yeah, in January.
Yeah.
So I have now been playing phone tag with the DCR person since Friday. So hopefully tomorrow morning, I'll speak to him and make sure he really knows about our concerns and how to mitigate the safety issue. But,
And I will also say I've had a couple of emails with the Bike and Walkways Committee representative, and it hasn't changed what they're trying to do, which is to provide an alternative path
yeah,
that for those who just want to leisurely ride along a bike path, it would not be along Route 6. So
yeah,
we're still working on that part of it, as finding where we could possibly make something like that happen. So it might not be officially called the Cape Cod Rail Trail, but if you got into Wellfleet and you wanted to continue to ride through a wooded area, basically
Yeah.
a non-trafficked area, we want to be able to find some way to be able to provide that.
yes. And I think that that's just going to be a number of years in the future,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
property would have to be bought, we have to work with the seashore. Maybe that's a meeting that could be set up sometime in January or February. Thought would be sooner, but with the seashore, with Lauren McKean, Martha Heavner,
Brian Karlstrom
right,
and Jeffrey, whose last name I always forget, who's the,
yeah.
yeah. So this segues into topic for future discussions. In other words.
Yes. Well,
I was
he's got,
Yeah, are we done with?
Yes, I
are we done with
apologize
the
for getting us.
administrator's report?
Yeah, but for
Isn't that
topics
right?
for future discussion, here's the thing. So this is good. I was going to say, we need to keep our noses to the, to the wheel, or whatever the expression is. We need to keep watching this because it's breaking news all
Okay,
the
so
time.
what is it?
But what I wanted to tell you is, there is a research, somebody who's very good at research, who is not on the Bike and Walkways Committee, but she did a remarkable amount of research on the 3 other times the National Seashore has looked at bike trails through the National Seashore, and she did a summary report, which is also
And
excellent.
who is that?
Barbara Taylor.
Okay.
And I've read it. I was at that Bike and Walkways Committee meeting, which was a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't their last one. And I want to ask her if we could all look at it. Brian Karlstrom is very interested in looking at it, because this has come up before.
Right.
And it's possible. And we should all know about it, too.
Okay,
just to
so
understand.
so how do you want to word this for a future agenda item?
I would like to try to have a meeting again about the whole issue, so that you could, if you're trying to be in touch with, playing phone tag with the DCR and the DOT, you and Dan, that we would, like, we've just been all updated for this, and we could have an opportunity to discuss it, given the breaking news, because there's been breaking news all along. And then we might get it outside in an email, but we need to discuss it in public. when it comes
So you want to put bike trail on the agenda?
Yeah, in some
Okay.
general way.
Yeah.
You know?
And we do need to talk with Brian Karlstrom, because he said back in July.
Yeah.
That'd be good. But that is a long process, and it's a separate process from what else is happening.
It could hit the
Mike.
pause button with the DOT.
I just would like to put back on the agenda the bike trail thing as well, because, when we had that vote, it was it was stated that they were coming in October to disclose plans,
Right.
and it was, the understanding was that they were coming back for another public comments session. They're not doing that.
Well, they're doing that in January.
No public comments.
That
It's
was
to
the
present a
DOT.
final plan. The
Yeah,
DOT,
okay.
the DCR is not coming back for public comments
They
again.
were.
They're
Anyhow,
just
we'll
coming back
figure
to
that, yeah.
present their final plan.
Okay.
They originally said they were going to come back for additional public comments and adjust their plan. They've decided not to. That was,
Right.
in June, that I think they originally said they would come back. They've not come back to the town, and I don't really
Okay,
feel
so
like
what's,
we've done.
what's your agenda item? You want to put the
Same
bike
as
trail,
Helen's, or-
the same, yeah,
No,
what do you
I
want
would like it
to
to
do?
be more specific about, well, I guess we could put it in general terms and see what unfolds,
Yeah,
to bring back up the bike trail
I
of
will
the
see if I
VCR.
talk, yeah,
the
I
DOT.
will talk to this man hopefully soon.
I've also attempted to call them several times.
I've been trying to
and
call
not-
for a month, so
Yeah.
I at least got
They have not
somebody
even
calling me back.
responded
Yeah,
to my phone calls, just asking for information about when they were planning to come,
well,
if they were
maybe,
planning
maybe
to come
that's
or
why they're not calling me back,
letters.
because everybody's calling me
No,
back.
no,
I wrote
nobody-
letters and emails, so anyhow, let's move on. Okay,
called.
we are going to
So I-
discuss the bike trail,
I had some more topics.
okay?
Yeah, can we please finish in an executive session about 3 Kendrick Avenue? Can we have a
Yes.
discussion?
Okay, 3 Kendrick Avenue,
Executive
executive
session.
session, fine.
And the marijuana policy, we haven't seen it in its final
Right.
state. In other words, it's not on the
Yeah.
books. And I would like to be able to do that at the next
Okay,
meeting.
so finish that
And
up.
then, those are 2 cans that have been kicked down, and we need to just take them off the shelf and eat them. And the third one is the Shellfish Shack, please. And in that homework packet, I would like to have a map that shows what's going to be covered over because of sea level rise. And they exist, and I will try to find it, but I would like that to be provided so that when we talk about it, we look at that. And we weigh our options about the Shellfish Shack in relation to that and anything else we want to bring
Okay.
up.
So what we could do is have an executive session on 3 Kendrick, but I think we should have a work session very soon with Shellfish Constable and Marine Advisory Board and a number of other people on the marina, and which would then include Shellfish Shack and where to go with it and make a final, not a final, but a pre-final, final
No, I think it should be
decision
separate.
on the marina.
I think it should be
I
separate,
say
too.
work meeting.
No, I think the Shellfish Shack should be separate from the marina thing.
Okay.
It's a,
Yeah,
it's
it's a
it's been
separate
separated
use.
from other.
Okay.
And I just want to answer something to Helen.
Yes.
The place to go to would be the Cape Cod Commission, who now has a tool
know.
that, okay.
Oh,
they can
for that,
give you-
yeah.
They can give you the
Picture.
stats on what climate change. They type it in to a
Yeah.
computer, and if we leave the building there, if we do nothing, you can type in different scenarios, and it will give you,
Yes.
Computer
great thing.
graphics, yeah.
Janet, I
Good.
had two more future concern things. I'm sorry. We need to have the two long-term users of town property, we need something to look at, whether it's a lease or a contract of any other sort. We need to resolve that. And
Yes,
this
we do.
is separate from discussing fees and so forth, because we have a very good policy on that already, and we can cover that. But we need something in writing from these people. We need terms to be
Yeah.
agreed on, and we need it very specifically for both of those property users.
Yeah, so,
that's what came-
so you said that when we talked about that before, you said that we already had the form, and
No.
and I said, let's come up with fees, and
No.
nobody,
No. What I said was, each one is a different case.
yep,
This isn't generally coming up with fees. We have this very good policy already. We can apply it. For long-term users, short-term users, whatever. It's all in there already. What we need is specifics for each one of those two long-term users. And Dan said there are only two, right? And,
sort of.
no, there are two. I
There's a
don't-
couple gray areas. Okay, so we're going to go back to having long-term use of town-owned property on.
No, just those two.
For the agenda item, it'll be long-term use of town-owned property, not with just those two, okay?
Well,
We're going
I-
to talk about, that's it, we need to complete it, we need to finish
So,
up with it.
Excuse me, Janet, they're two separate issues.
Two separate businesses.
No, there are two separate issues. Long-term use of town-owned property, what we need to discuss is look at our policy, read it before the meeting, obviously, and say, does this already cover this? I did that. If I remember correctly, Mike did it too. It seemed to me the policy covered that just fine. It's a very good policy.
Point of
And
order.
the issue is the two things, this is what I would like to have an agenda item on.
Point of order.
Yeah.
I don't agree with everything you're saying, and I have concerns about use of town property, so could we please have a more general agenda item?
Okay.
And we can cover
And we
everybody's
can
different
bring them
concerns.
up.
But I think that we're
Okay.
starting to come into deliberation. I think that there's any number of aspects of use of town property and fees that would be best addressed in one meeting, and
Okay.
a general agenda topic would be enough for now.
So, yeah, we can keep it going. Okay, so use of long-term use of town property. That's it, boom. What else?
Okay, that's not what I asked for, but that's okay. What
Well,
I asked for is...
Write it down and send it in.
I just stated it. We have two users, long-term users of town property that we have no formal agreement with. This is very specific, and it's like if Press Hall came to us
Okay, we got it. So I've been talking about this for a month, and we had a meeting on it, and
and
you said,
nothing, and it wasn't on the agenda, so we couldn't
Okay.
act on it. We have to be able to act
no,
on it.
never mind. Okay, so, long-term use of town property, finalizing it, okay? Is that good, Courtney? Yep. Okay,
Then an accompanying agenda item, a broader use of town property. I want something where we can look at things like Oyster Fest when 12,000 people flood our town for 2 days.
I'm going to
Okay, but-
list it as short and long-term
Short and
use, So
long-term.
that you can discuss anything you want about use of
And-
town-owned property.
Thank you,
yes,
Dan.
and fees, okay.
That's the work meeting, correct?
Okay.
I thought we have one scheduled.
So
Well,
the way
that was
in
my
No,
intention.
don't, just,
next
no,
week,
hell,
but-
no more. We're going to move on. We're going to say, you're not getting it clearly across. I know what you want. I know what you need. And we've been discussing this. I've been discussing it, and somehow it just hasn't gotten finalized. So we will finalize. We had this discussion. Were you at that work committee meeting?
Yes.
Yeah. So we've had that discussion, and we'll just finalize it at another meeting.
No,
If
we
you
have
s-
not
okay.
had the discussion about the two properties.
I have. I don't know what you.
We didn't
yeah.
vote on it, it wasn't on the agenda.
We didn't vote on it, but we had it, so. All right, go ahead. Okay, so I get what you're saying. I agree.
Thank you.
And let's move on from there.
So what we're talking about is revising our existing policy, and I
Oh,
would be
you're
down-
going into details. I get what you're
We
doing.
have it on future concerns.
We got
So
it,
we
we
will
got
bring
it.
it forward.
We got it. You don't have to explain it anymore.
Okay.
Okay, so.
I'm all set, Jen.
Two things. Donation, Dan, this donation of town property that got, so,
It's not going anywhere yet because
two town.
two
Donation of
people,
property to town, okay.
two people own it, and only one
Okay.
has agreed, and the
All right,
other
okay.
one has not yet, so.
So you're on it?
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing, this is important. I just heard today, and maybe somebody else here has better information. I heard that Mass Appeal, which is in the building that has the Furies, the old salvage place that's being, what?
Cove Corner.
Cove Corners, thank you, and Dunkin' Donuts, that's where one of the marijuana businesses is coming. And I've heard that they have displaced Mass Appeal.
No. They took the antique store.
But, so yes, that's why I agree, but then I just heard today that that they've taken over Mass Appeal and displaced them.
Not that I know of.
Well, so I want Mr. Hort to check on that. And if so, they never said, the marijuana people never said they were going to be doing that. And Mass Appeal, for
But-
the audience who doesn't know, is used very often and is for clothing and donations and really helps a certain part of our town.
But going back, this was the group that originally consigned to take the South Wellfleet General
Right,
Store.
yeah.
Reconfigured and came back with a different location for Cove Corner. We asked them to appear with us again with, we wanted to see the original people,
True.
okay?
Yeah.
We had a host community
Okay,
agreement.
but we're not going to
and all-
discuss this, yeah.
Okay, so that's the bigger question in my mind.
Well,
This
yeah.
is the group that's been a little,
Yes,
Point of
they've
order, we
been a
can't
little-
deliberate on this.
A little
Like, we
cloudy,
can't-
so.
We can't
so,
opine.
I would like to find out, and I could probably find out too.
I will
but
find
want
out
to find
for you.
out if that is happening, and if so, then they have to appear, and actually, if they're in a different place, a different space, right, if they've expanded their space. And I'll go look at that building, but, yeah, that would not be good, the whole, that would not be good. So,
I
Don't
know we're not going
deliberate.
to deliberate it, but I just want to affirm what Kathleen said, that Kathleen and I had some doubts about who the management team really was. Ben Zender came in.
okay, so we're not going
This
to
is the-
discuss this.
But I'd like to know the answer to that, as well
Okay.
as, and Ben Zender was
For them?
representing
Was he for
representing,
them? Okay.
representing them.
who's a new attorney for a new group.
Did, Dan, did you ever get to call the host community people and see if they're still continuing with their agreement?
Call the host community.
All of the 5
You
different
know what,
applicants?
I'm reaching out to all of them and
Okay.
asking them to give us an
Yeah,
update.
an update.
Yeah.
Okay. Good, thank you. Okay. That's it, right? Minutes?
No,
No, I have,
correspondence.
Oh, correspondence.
I have a
Yeah,
couple, I have
that's right.
one
Future
area of
concern.
future concern.
Oh, okay, oh, no.
It's
We
it's
better
easy.
have more
No,
meetings.
we don't have to do it right now, but I read the social media policy, and it's adequate in some respects, but it doesn't cover certain things, our social media policy, that I think we need to have covered moving forward. And
Okay.
that's all.
Okay,
That's
so
all.
social media
Social media policy updated.
Good.
That's it.
So I got this lovely letter. I don't think you guys got this letter. It's kind of, I think I'm the only one who got it. So I will read it.
get it.
Okay.
I got a copy of that.
Yeah, and I just got it today. So I'm going to read it because it's a nice letter. And it says, congratulations, it's to myself, Mr. Hort, and Michelle Inslee of SPAT, Executive Director of SPAT. Congratulations on a successful Oyster Fest. The AIM Thrift Shop appreciates being part of such a wonderful event. As you know, many of our visitors come for our world-famous oysters, and many took the time to come in and shop at our store. Business was excellent. Thank you for having this event in downtown Wellfleet. Also, we appreciate your efforts by eliminating the use of plastics. Sincerely, AIM Thrift Shop Board of Directors. So this is one of those great, and I'm going to keep this, or maybe, actually, would you pass it down to Courtney and Dan so that when, well,
It's in the room.
SPAT would have gotten it, Michelle Inslee would have gotten it, but that's one of those nice things that in all the craziness, the AIM Thrift Shop made money.
Yeah, and if they did, I bet other businesses did too.
Yeah, so, all right, any more for correspondence report?
Yeah, so there's a letter that came in about the fact that drones
Yeah,
are flying very low. And I'm not sure, I know you can't have them in the seashore, and as with dogs, and shared outside environments, shared natural environments, or just shared environments involving sea, involving water or air, dogs, sound, decibels, and something like a drone, I would like us to have a general bylaw. So this is looking at.
so this is a future concern, and we could put drones on the future agenda.
But I'm bringing it up
Because
because of
it's
the
under
correspondence
yeah.
report
Yeah.
in response to that, and to find out what the park does. So it's kind of, this is a kind of
Yeah.
two agenda item. It's covered in two agenda items, but I wanted to bring it up because the letter was, the park says you can go up there if you've got signs and you've got a permit. So, if the Shellfish Department wanted to use a drone occasionally for something, but you can't, it scares shorebirds, it does all kinds of things, and
Yeah,
6
so,
or 20
okay, so
feet.
future
Point of
agenda
order.
island,
Yeah,
item,
future
Or
okay?
correspondence, did we all
No,
read
fu-
this?
Yes.
Oh,
Future
okay,
agenda
good.
items, because if we're going to do a policy on it, I also want the input from the Marina Advisory Committee and the Shellfish Constable, and
Oh,
this
I
was
want-
at the marina, but we,
I wasn't suggesting that. I
Okay.
was suggesting a general bylaw so it can be
okay, well,
enforced.
wouldn't it be,
Second thing,
okay.
so sometimes without any
Is this
comment.
correspondence?
Yes.
Okay.
Sometimes without any comment or anything, I will forward something that comes into me, right, to the rest of the board. And I would just, you could put, my name next to it and then forward it. In other words, this reads in the
You're talking about the Helen
cars,
Wilson?
I'm talking about the car, yeah. In other words, it's not for me, it's that I felt the whole board should have it, so you could just put
Helen, we
forward
often
it.
get it.
It says, I'm assuming that you're referencing 1026 Helen Miranda Wilson / Tim Sayer landmark website accessibility case?
No, I'm looking at 11.5 and 11.6.
Okay, I can put that it was forwarded from you.
Yeah.
I also just want to point out that that drone email came in today and it's not on this correspondence report,
It isn't.
because
Oh,
this
that's
correspondence
'cause it
report
did
is
come in
for
just
ending
today,
last
yeah.
Thursday.
So sorry about that.
That's okay.
And I
It's on
wasn't.
next times.
And I wasn't looking at the list, I wasn't on the computer yesterday.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to point that out.
And so I only got it this morning, I didn't know when it came in.
Okay, moving on to minutes. Any more amendments? Okay, hearing none, can I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of Tuesday, October 15th, and Tuesday, October 22nd, 2019, as amended.
Second?
All in favor? Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Just that one.
Any papers to sign?